Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's first portion of tonight's meeting, Administration, Fire, and Finance. I am your chair, Jason Trombetta. I'd like to welcome everybody this evening. Start off first, due to the efforts of COVID and protect all individuals, council chambers will not be open to the public to attend any standing committees. And further notice, the public may submit comments in the matters of the agenda to Joanne Shime at westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted to be considered as a public information and read in the public forum. The meeting will be recorded and available on the township's website within 48 hours. So is there any change in items on the agenda, council? Seeing none, move on. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Seeing none. We'll head on to appointments. We have item PA01-21, Carol Nagy, Hospice of Niagara, request for a one-time contribution of the hospice expansion. A PowerPoint presentation is attached, so I will pass it on to Ms. Nagy, and then there's a recommendation after to follow, council.
Thank you, everyone. Can I share my screen with you and I'll put the PowerPoint up?
Yes, by all means. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Everybody can see that, I hope? Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you. Just move my thing out of the way here. Okay, so I'm joining you tonight to talk about an expansion that's happening in Niagara with Hospice Niagara. Our services are much similar to what's being offered at McNally House, except that we also provide the community hospice care in people's homes, along with our partners, the LIN and physicians as well. And we have all of the volunteer support programs housed under Hospice Niagara. So our bereavement programs are mainly staffed, excuse me, through volunteers. We do have some coordinators, and we also provide a day hospice that McNally would, and we are the region's education and consultation hospice as well. So we provide that kind of education across all of Niagara, Hamilton, and Burlington as well. So the project in Niagara is to build new hospice beds. Really I'll go into later why this is such an important project for Niagara. This project itself will provide 20 new hospice residence beds in Niagara. It will preserve the hospice beds that we have now in West Lincoln, which are 6 beds at this time. However, I know that there's some proposed expansion there as well. It'll bring 50 to 60 new healthcare jobs to professionals in Niagara. And we know that many of these professionals work across healthcare systems. So we always want to train up as many as we can in end-of-life care. So that can be offered at any point of care in family health, for example. It's a $14 million capital investment in our healthcare system, and will translate into, when I roll all this up, into about $3.1 million of spending across the Niagara region. So what's the problem? Why are we taking this ambitious project on now? So what's happening is that there's a lot of pressure on our hospice beds. Right now at Hospice Niagara, at any given month, we are turning, or any given year, sorry, we're turning away 300 to 400 people, closer to that 400. We've been doing that for a number of years now, till our board of directors 3 years ago said we have to do something drastically different. We also know that our hospital system in Niagara is also in a state of flux, where we have a lot of our end-of-life beds are currently in the South Hospitals, Fort Erie. And with the new build to the new Niagara Falls Hospital, we are going to lose those end-of-life beds in Fort Erie. We also have the Welland Hospital. Its transition and its future is up in the air. They house also some end-of-life beds, and also there are some in Port Coburn. So right now, people that are in St. Catharines in the hospital and they're at end of life are being transferred south to those beds because there are no beds for end of life care in St. Catharines. Right now, people are receiving acute palliative care, and that's costing upwards of $16 million in any given year for people to die end of life in the hospital. And certainly that's not where people want to die. As well, there are 6 beds at Hotel du Shaver, and they applied in their expansion to have more end-of-life beds, but were denied by the province as they're being designated as a rehabilitation hospital. So they can maintain those beds that they currently have, but they can't expand them. So just that alone at Hotel du Shaver is setting us back 17 beds in the next 5 years. So we've got a real end-of-life crisis. If we don't do something like expand our hospice capacity now, then end-of-life care is going to be done in hospitals more than ever in acute care, which is going to drive the price of our healthcare up. And as well, that's not providing family the type of care that they would like and they desire at end of life. I should also say that the point about preserving your beds in West Lincoln, in fact, I was just speaking to somebody the other day from Niagara that is in a bed over at McNally. And we don't have the capacity. We look at what's happening right now with this pandemic and with outbreaks, and we don't even have the capacity in Niagara that should one hospice residents decrease the amount of service they can do because of an outbreak or a pandemic or any other healthcare issue, for example, something that goes wrong with the building, we would really overwhelm the existing beds that are currently there. So our solution is to do this expansion. Now we know that it would be very difficult for the province to approve any standalone hospice. That's just not what this ministry, how they see things. We heard clearly early on that they want to see integration and they want to see some back end savings in healthcare systems. So we propose to them that these two hospice residences, 10 beds each, that will be built in conjunction with long-term care homes. So what that would mean is we would have 4 hospice care centers in Niagara, one in St. Catharines, where it currently is. Central Niagara would have one in Welland and one in Fort Erie. Those are the 2 sites where there's new long-term care home builds. And then we would have the 4th one in Grimsby at McNally House. I think I've reviewed most of those. For most of you, you're probably aware of hospice, but I just want to point out in this that a cost of $1.3 million is gained at least in hospice care every year because people die with us. We are at a better rate of beds costs for a hospice bed. We're looking about $450 a day. Well, in acute care, we're looking at $1,100 a day. So if we're looking at costs, it's far better to build in hospice care for end of life than it is to build in more hospital beds. McNally House would have these same kinds of impact statements. You know, our satisfaction rate of families receiving our care is upward of 98 to 100%. In our new builds, they have a couple of unique features. One, the 10 beds in Welland will be built alongside Foyer Richelieu, and we've made a commitment to provide both English and French in that hospice, and we'll be hiring mostly French-speaking staff. As well, all of our these 2 builds are going to integrate with long-term care. We will have our own section of the building that would be hospice care. So we're maintaining all of the high hospice standards, but building alongside long-term care allows for savings in the capital expansion or capital cost because there's an economies of scale. They're building upward of 260 or more beds where we're building 10. So it really becomes economical for us. And we're also integrating a lot of our back-end systems so that we run with one IT structure, for example. We run with one large chef's kitchen in Welland, for example, so that we're not duplicating that kind of construction cost. So increasing this capacity in hospice care throughout Niagara and providing these 4 centers of excellence really moves our region toward a modern connected healthcare system that nurtures our close partnerships between long-term care, the community, and hospitals, as well as home and hospice resources such as primary care. So in conclusion, I'm hoping that you'll support this build. You know that since the expansion to the Lincoln Memorial Hospital went out to the region, and we are now asking more and more for some support for these because we're not seeing this kind of support through the ministry, or we need the support in order to prove the ministry that we're working together in order to bring these projects to fruition. I hope that you would certainly consider a support to this expansion model. We have the framework of that already established, and I'll get into that in a minute. We're hoping to get all municipal support to access and at least prove to the ministry that we're close to getting that funding. The capital grant policy for the Ministry of Health is $4 million, which is $200 million for each 10-bed hospice, $200,000 per bed. And we're hoping to match as close to that as we can, along with our fundraising, in order to make sure that the province forwards that $4 million for these builds. Now, I know when we're talking about hospital bills that $4 million is not a lot of money, but it certainly is a lot of money in hospice care. As you know, we're not fully funded, and we're already having to fundraise for 40% of our operational costs. So going out for a capital build without any support from the ministry or from our municipalities is a tall order for us. So I'm asking that you consider matching what the other municipalities have done, and you'll note that St. Catharines has already firmed up their contribution. So this turns into a $4.83 per person, according to your 2016 census. For West Lincoln turns into $70,856. However, I would certainly welcome any level of support from your municipality. So that's my presentation, but I certainly will take any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Nagy, for that presentation, obviously during these challenging times. So I will open it up to committee. Anybody, I saw the mayor's hand first for comments or questions. It's the only hand I've seen so far. So Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And Carol, thank you so much for showing up. Just so that everybody, full disclosure, Carol and I have spoken numerous times in the course of the past year leading up to this. And I felt that it was appropriate to have Carol speak to the council. Now, we do have McNally House in the neighborhood, and Carol and I have talked at length about the partnership and the arrangement of McNally and kind of in our neighborhood. But we do agree that we look at these things a little bit more regionally. And so, you know, like I said, in full disclosure, making sure council's kind of up to date with, up to speed with both presentations. And we do hope to have McNally House do a presentation as well. Again, we're not territorial. We know that if a bed becomes available in Welland, for example, and it suits the family to go to a hospice in Welland for that end of life care, that will, you know, that could go to one of our residents. And so, you know, we have a little bit more lax position on hospice care, you know, again, trying to accommodate the families. So I just wanted to say one more thing, and that was, there was a section there in your presentation, Carol, where, you know, we talk dollars and cents, and we understand that there's a humanity to end of life care, and it's not all about dollars and cents. But the beauty of this particular situation is, not only is it more efficient to go through that end of life process in hospice, but it's kinder and more compassionate as well, because it's the focus and because of the environment, the nature of the training of the people of the staff. And I don't know, I've been to McNally House and visited family friend there who was passing. You know, it has a very homey feel. You know, it's carpeted. There's a grandfather clock, and there's nice furniture, and there's you know, grieving rooms and spiritual services. And so not only is it more efficient to go through that bereavement process or that end of life process in hospice, but it's also just a better place to do it. So, you know, it's kind of a win-win. And obviously, you know, Carol, you're fully aware that nobody has extra money. So it's always a challenge to come up with these discussions. But I just kind of wanted to highlight what a better way to go through that end of life process with family and than in hospice over a hospital.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can just comment, you know, we work together with McNally House, and we work together with families, and they often put their name on each other's hospices, or sometimes both. But you're right, a lot of families could, you know, the patient could live in St. Catharines, but they have family members in Grimsby or that area, so they would want to choose that hospice. The other thing I want to say, and not competing with McNally, that's in full disclosure, I know the McNally is planning to rebuild, and I hope that they're successful in that build as well. Let's be strategic about this, though. We're building a regional perspective on this, and so I think that even if the $4.83 is too much for West Lincoln, and West Lincoln wants to target maybe the majority of your give to McNally, giving something allows McNally the opportunity to ask other municipalities to help with their gift as well. So that's an important thing, that, you know, we're coming together at this, and I know the regions often, municipalities don't think that you have to be involved with healthcare, but if not you, then who, right? As we try to make sure that we have enough, we always make decisions as municipalities to increase in development, and we increase in our education systems and things, but where are those people going to die, except in our hospitals, if we don't look at this end of life as well? Sorry, I didn't want to go on there. But
Carol, thank you, Chair. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't sure if Councillor Gann, did you have your hand up there, or did you put the pen up there?
Thank you, I did. However, you know, I had some technical difficulties and I missed the beginning of the presentation. But in fact, Carol, the explanation you just gave about McNally and working in conjunction, and the fact that they're also fundraising, was what I wanted to ask about, because I thought that I had perhaps missed that beginning. But you wrapped it up at the end, so my question was answered. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Councillor Gann. Councillor Riley, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair. First, thank you so much for the presentation, Carol. Very much appreciate that. My grandfather actually passed away in hospice care at the St. Catharines Center probably about 8 years ago or so. I think my son was about 1. And as the mayor said, that there's really no real way to understand what that facility does and provides without having to step foot in it. So I think, you know, it's certainly difficult to, I think, for a lot of people to understand the importance of. But my question for you, Carol, through you, Mr. Chair, to the presenter is, so that $70,856, was that a number that was given to each municipality? So like St. Catharines, that has over a couple 100,000 people, their per person is going to be significantly lower. So I'm just trying to figure out if it was just one chunk per municipality, or if it was based overall Niagara population.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it was based on $4.83 per the 2016 census for every single municipality. So St. Catharines then was over $600,000 in their commitment, and they've already committed to that. They put it, I believe, over 4 years. And that's up to every municipality. We are hoping to, you know, we will start the builds this fall. All things go well, which we're hoping that it does. And so the move-in date, or the completion date, is looking at that 2023-24 at the latest. So certainly a gift over a number of years is fine with us as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that's the only question I had for right now. So that's all I need, Chair. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Sorry, I saw something pop up saying my internet connection was unstable, so I might have jumped in there a little earlier. Sorry about that, Councillor Riley. So over here, members of council, just that there is a recommendation afterwards, but first I'd like to thank Ms. Nagy for your presentation. Appreciate it, especially, you know, doing it remotely like we all are, and want to say a real thank you, and thank you for coming out during these challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Members of committee, we have a recommendation here that the letter from Carol Nagy, Executive Director, Hospice Niagara, dated December 22nd, 2020, requesting the Township of West Lincoln, along with the other Niagara region municipalities, for a one-time contribution of $70,856, which equates to $4.83 per person times West Lincoln's 2016 census, in the support of a proposed 20-bed expansion to hospice care in Niagara region, and to support their application to the Ministry of Health with the funding to Hospice Niagara to be distributed over a designated period of time as determined by the Township of West Lincoln to be received for information. I need this to be received for information. Do I need a mover? Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Jonker. All those in favor?
Support.
And that carries. Thank you. Moving on, anybody to request items on the agenda? I don't see anything. I haven't heard anything from Roberta. I guess, is there any, Roberta?
I don't see any, Councillor Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Roberta. Heading on to consent agenda items. Item A0221, consent agenda items, recommendation, Administration of Finance approves that items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are hereby received for information. Number 2, item 6B, and hereby received for information. The recommendations contained there and adopted with the exception of, and sorry there for a second, this 1, 2, and then so with the exception of, and then we have over here, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee meetings, October 8th, 2020, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, December 2020, Information Report T04 2020, Interim Tax Bylaw, Information Report WFFD 01 2020, monthly December, Information Memo confirmation received from Integrity Commission regarding Mayor Bosma's complete sensitivity training complaints 020, 02, 03, and 04. Recommendation Report 03 2021 updating West Lincoln's Township Health and Safety Policy. I need a mover for these. Councillor Broderick, seconder. Councillor Ganan. All those in favor?
Support.
Anybody pulling anything? Is anybody on the, sorry, I didn't ask if anyone wanted to pull anything prior to me asking. Councillor Riley, go ahead.
I'd like to pull 4 and 5.
Okay, so Councillor Riley just wants to pull 4 and 5. So I need a mover. Do I need a mover and seconder? I can't remember if I need a mover and seconder for that. No, right? No. It's fine. So we'll vote on, actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll vote on all the rest of them except 4 and 5. All in favor?
Support.
And that carries. Item 4 is information report, WFFD 01 2020 monthly update, just so everybody knows, December 20. And number 5, information memo confirming receive the Integrity Commissioner regarding Mayor Bosma completing sensitivity training complaints 2020-02, 03, 04. Councillor Riley, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with item 4, if that's all right.
Yep.
I just wanted to ask, I think it's the first time I've seen Dennis in a while, so through you to the fire chief, I just wanted to make a comment here. I think what the fire department did was exceptional in making that Santa drive-through possible. I know Tim Hortons had approached some other committees to see if they could help help bring Santa to town. There are a lot of families that were being impacted with the pandemic and everything else, and I must say, when I heard that, I couldn't have been happier to be a member of this community, to see our own fire department take the initiative and get involved and make that possible. I think that impact was really well received, and I think it brightened many families, many children's spirits during such a difficult time. So through you, Mr. Chair, to the fire chief, I just want to thank you and the fire department for making that possible, because I don't think it would have been possible without you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, for the nice comments. I'll certainly pass it on to the guys. Okay. Absolutely.
Thank you. Floor is still yours, Councillor Riley.
So that's all. I just wanted to speak to that because that was addressed in that item there.
Okay, so I let you bring up number 5 and we'll vote
going
on
to number 5. Okay. So I was sure if we had to vote on that first.
We need a mover and seconder, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. For number 4, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, yes. I think we have to vote on it.
Please. I don't think, did I get a mover and seconder?
No.
No, sorry. For number 4, and can I have a mover and a seconder for that, Mr. Mayor?
I guess I'll move it.
Councilor Rayner. And sorry, for number 5 as well, can I get a mover?
I'll do it again.
Councilor Rayner and Councilor Riley. Councilor Riley, the floor is yours for number 5 as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think I realized this was under the consent there, and it's one of these things that kind of get slipped through the cracks here. And being probably one of the most difficult things this council had to deal with in this term, I honestly think, is the disciplinary recommendation from our integrity commissioner, around the situation that took place back in the summertime of 2020 there. And so I have to say, I'm very impressed to see this at this point. Not that I didn't think the mayor would follow through on it, but I think it shows the level of seriousness that he's, followed through on council's direction. It could have been a little bit more, complicated had he not been willing, and I think that should speak volumes to the matter of council being heard and being able to act properly and within the authority, because there was a lot of bad blood all around. So I just thought it was worth bringing this back up. Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for completing this, and I hope this is the final chapter in this now, and I feel like our community can truly move forward from this, and hopefully this becomes a non-existent memory in our minds not too far down the road. So I just wanted to make a simple statement there. We don't need to really belabor this.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Any other comments from members of committee? Seeing none, I will put them both number 4 and 5. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councilor Rayner, are you carrying that as well?
Yeah, I did say support. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't hear you there. So you're playing peekaboo with me, but not saying I didn't hear you there. Sorry about that. Moving on to item 0321, Clerk Joanne Shimmy, recommendation report C01 2021 summer and December meeting schedule. The recommendation that report RFD C01 2021 dated January 18, 2021 regarding the 2021 summer and December meeting schedule be received, and that the meeting scheduled for July and December 2021 be approved as follows. Monday, July 26, 2021, public meeting under the Planning Act at 6:30, council meeting immediately following the public meeting under the Planning Act. The council meeting to commence at 7 p.m. with Planning Administration Public Works items included on council agenda. Monday, December 6, 2021, public meeting under the Planning Act, 6:30, all committees, including separate agendas for Administration, Public Works, and Planning Committee meetings immediately following the public meetings. And Monday, December 13, 2021, council meeting. I need a mover. Councilor Gannon, seconded. Councilor Jonker, comments or questions? Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of notes here. One, I will not be supporting this. I understand last year we had one meeting in the summer. That was originally brought around this time, actually. Last year, I think I was chairing the administration meeting and filling in for the 2 councilors who were away at the time. And we had referred it back to staff due to a councilor's schedule that wasn't sure if they could make it happen. In the end, we came to a conclusion that it was just easier to push it back the 1 week. I don't like the precedent that's just setting for the future. I also find it hard to support at this time, considering we're 7 months away. We're in the middle of a lockdown, in the middle of a pandemic. We don't know what's going to be coming down our plate. So I think it's probably more logistically, what makes logistical sense here is to plan as if we're going to have a meeting. And if it turns out we don't have enough for a meeting or an agenda, then I think a month before or so would be the appropriate time in determining whether or not we should cancel that meeting. I think this is just a little premature, and I certainly don't think this should actually have come up at the time it has, considering everything else that our staff has to worry about. So I'll be opposing this. I'm also going to call for recorded vote too.
Thank you, Councilor Riley. And did you note that, Councilor, Madam Clerk, about the recorded vote, just so you can note that? Anybody else? Questions?
Yes,
or
I'd like to.
Councilor Rayner, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. When I seen this, I was I was rather shocked. To me, it didn't send a good message at all. Here we are just coming off a vacation time, Christmas and New Year's, and staff are right into worrying about the next vacation times when we have COVID to worry about. And most important, we have an extremely critical budget that has to be put together. And to me, it would have been much more productive for staff to be working on trying to get that budget as close to zero, and trying to put roads in it and everything that we want to do, considering that St. Catharines came in at 186 last week, than to be worrying about a schedule in July and worrying about a schedule in December. The priorities don't seem to be in order to me. That when I seen this, I went, seriously. I mean, we could talk about July and March, we could talk about December and September, and we certainly have much, much more important things that need to be dealt with right now. This is, to me, is frivolous, and it's consuming staff time. And it sends a terrible message that we're worried about this so far in ahead. Like this one in December, we're talking almost a year away. We have much more important things to be utilizing staff time on than worrying about schedules. The other thing is, my past experience, as I've explained it many times, although it didn't happen last year, was that the meetings that are held in the summer, some of them, especially with public meetings, can be very, very, very long to the wee hours of the morning. In which case, sometimes I even suggested that we did a Monday, Tuesday. And now this particular one doesn't even have August in it. I understand the background, what it was written, that they want to split it in the middle. But still, it depends on the number of public meetings, and it could make it for a very wicked September. And we don't know right now what September is going to be. So this whole thing is extremely premature, which is exactly what Councillor Riley said. So I'm not supporting this either. I don't know why this was brought forward. I don't think it's proper utilization of staff time right now. We certainly have much more priorities than this. And I would like to even put this on the back burner and bring it back in March or something.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. I got Councillor Jonker, and then I got Councillor Ganan.
Yeah, I kind of see this as quite the opposite. We get a schedule at the beginning of the year. Our clerk makes that up, and this is just going from last year. It worked quite well, so I don't. I'm just a little bit surprised that this is a big discussion. I think last year we seen it worked well, and I think we also got to remember, at the end of the day, if we do need to call an extra meeting, we do have the ability to call a special council meeting. So I think we're making more out of this than really what needs to be done. And it's just regular scheduling. And now we know when the meetings are going to be. And yeah, there is people that schedule actually their holidays 5-6 months ahead. So, you know, I go provincial parks. I got to book 5 months ahead to get a site. So you need to know when you can go. So I think we're making this out to be more than it really is. And yeah, I have no problem supporting this. And I thank the clerk for getting this together, and yeah, it's not that complicated.
Thanks, Councillor Jonker. Councillor Ganan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of years ago, I did have a problem when it came up later in the year, and it just suddenly was foisted upon us when the meeting would be. So I very much appreciated the fact that, just like last January, in January of this year, we actually had an opportunity to have some input into it with a message that came out from the clerk's office ahead of time, asking us what the best ones were for us and which dates we suggested, and giving us an opportunity to kind of vote on that. So I think the timing is right. It's not a big deal. Other than set the dates, we don't have to do anything else. The fact that we have an opportunity to call a meeting if something comes up is also a valid point. I would agree with Councillor Jonker about that. Further to that, I think that one of the things that we have to remember is everybody panicked that last summer, having only one meeting was going to mean that we would be there till midnight. And in that case, you know, we were apprehensive about setting the time, and it was fine. It was not a very long meeting after all. And September was not totally overloaded. So I think we just have to watch and see what kinds of things are coming in. Planning is always heavy, we know that. So if we see, or if Mr. Treble anticipates that it looks like things are piling up, then putting an extra meeting in, I think, especially regarding planning, would be something that we could think about doing then. For now, I will support this the way it stands because I don't see any reason not to. I think the ability to have a meeting if we need it is still there. Thank you.
Okay, then any Councilor Braddock, did you have? Sorry, I didn't know if I saw your. Okay, okay, perfect. Sorry, I didn't know if it came up while everybody else was raising. Councilor Braddock, second time. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I understand the whole, we could call a meeting at any time. I think logistically it makes sense to plan as if we're going to have a meeting this far out. You know, last year was the first time we had it, to my understanding, only once in the summer, and that was to make a one-time exception, which is why I supported it last year. I don't like the precedent setting this year, and the idea that, hey, last minute we could just call it if we need to call it, like that's going to create more work and heartache for staff versus them planning around the possibility of having one and then finding out, hey, we don't have one, and then they don't have to worry about it. And that's probably something that could be decided about a 4 to 6 weeks beforehand. But thinking that, you know, we could just call it special council meeting last night is gonna be this a justification that it's not gonna, you know, we could plan more accordingly. Like that, to me, that seems like backwards logic in my opinion, because that feels like we're setting ourselves up for a potential disaster. Also, we didn't know we were going to be in a pandemic last January either. I'm kind of curious how much that would have played into the situation that we're in now, and not knowing what the next steps are going to be in our transition out of this. So again, like I understand, you know, members of council, you know, support the idea and they have every right to do so. But if the only justification is like we can just call it any time, I don't agree with that. I think we should plan more accordingly and plan as if we're going to have it. If we don't need it, then we don't have to worry about it, and that decision can be made closer to. But making that decision at this point, I don't think is the best decision, but that's just my opinion, my say, and I'm just one voice. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Seeing anyone else?
Well, a couple more things.
Go ahead for a second time, Councilor Rayner, and then I have some comments I'd like to add in myself. So go ahead.
Okay. Councilor Ganan's comments that things went well last year, but I'm sure Councilor Ganan also realizes that no two meetings are the same, and you could have, and we've had that where we've had meetings where we're done in an hour, and we've had meetings when we're done in 6 hours. So there's no way of knowing. I would say in all the years that I've been on council, there has been more late ones in the summer than there has been early ones in the summer. So I'm going by past experience of leaving the council chambers at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's what I'm going by. The other thing, of course, is this comes through in January, and normally January I'm not here. So this usually doesn't become a point of discussion because council's already made the decision in my absence. But now that I'm here now, that's why I'm commenting on this, we really don't know what we're going to get. And we would know a lot more the closer we are to scheduling. It would be a lot better to schedule this thing in May or June for July than to have an impromptu less than 24 hours notice that we have to have an emergency meeting, which really doesn't get anybody prepared for anything. And it's really flying by the seat of your pants. I'd rather be more organized, and we would have I'm sure Mr. Trouble would have a much better idea of what public meetings and everything potentially could be scheduled for the summer in May and June than he would have right now in January. So I'm just going by the fact that I think we need to be more prepared. And right now we're hoping and wishing that it's going to go like last year, but no 2 years are the same. Thank you.
Sorry, Councilor Broderick. Yep, the floor is yours, Councilor Broderick. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize in advance for my ignorance. However, I would assume that upper management puts a lot of work into the meetings, and also assuming that those same people have a bank of vacation time that would need to be used up. And in order to support good quality of life for our staff, I think it would be important to allow for this large amount of block of time that people can have access to without having to be consumed of the work of meetings, and that the vacation schedule could be worked on, by the CAO, so that there's a balance off of people, so that if some are off, others can fill in if an emergency meeting was to come to light. So that's just my observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Seeing no other members of council, I'll have some comments myself if you would adhere to me making some comments. I will not be in support of this, and the only reason is I had brought this up last year. The staff comes up with the schedule, and they have the schedule from January all the way to July, and then 2 months in the summer, we have to vote on it and the Christmas schedule. I believe that staff should just set the schedule for members of this committee. Look how political it gotten just because this is on the agenda. If staff sets the schedule from January to December, these are the meetings, these are the dates. The Madam CAO will have probably discussions with her senior management team and the mayor to work around AMO and all the rest of the conferences that they have throughout the year. Set the schedule. I think this is an old, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, this is an old thing that previous councils did in the past of approving the summer schedule and December. You know, I think we should move away from these times. I think that the staff, the senior management team, the CAO and everyone else should set the schedule by her talking, because really senior management would have to schedule way more people than 6 or 7 members of council. She has to, you know, look at everybody's schedule, all the directors and everyone. So really we should be near the end of, we shouldn't even be in the conversation. If we can meet the meetings, we can make the meetings. If we can't, we can't. Now that we're looking like our lives are turning remotely, we can, you know, make every meeting. And again, like I've worked with the mayor for 6 years. He hasn't missed a meeting, and I'm trying to find out one that he has, and I haven't caught him missing one yet, but you know, he hasn't missed a meeting. He's worked his schedule around the meetings. He hasn't requested, you know, days to be off so it can meet his schedule. The meetings are set by senior management, January to December. These are the meetings. If you can make a meeting as councilman, we can make it. If you can't, you can't. Now we'll have the option in the future even to make it remotely if we're on holidays, or if you're on holidays, or like last year, and I say it, it was my birthday on the Monday. I had family coming over. I didn't come to the meeting, and c'est la vie. I didn't make the meeting because I had, you know, prior engagements. And that was July 27th, last year's on Monday's meeting. So I just find this really turns political. Look how much we've been talking about it now. We've had countless emails going back and forth with everybody. It's taking up a lot of time. Please, I think I'd like to make I don't know if I need a recommendation here that, you know, the senior management team sets a schedule, and this doesn't need to come to council anymore. I don't know, but I don't know if I can set the recommendation as chair to put a recommendation for it. I have to step down, but I'd like to see that in the future. So I saw your hand, Madam Clerk. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that because the procedural bylaw states when the standing committee meetings are and the council meetings, to do something different, that's why a report comes before council. For their consideration, because we're kind of deviating from the procedural bylaw. So in order to do that, now I know I sound like a broken record. I am working on the procedural bylaw. I worked on it today. So, you know, I'm hoping that I can make some changes to it. And, you know, you're totally right. This is how it's been forever, as far as I can ever recall. I've been in the clerk's department majority of my career at the township. So I have a good understanding of what's kind of happened in the past, and it has been a past thing, but never changed. So again, with respect to calling a special meeting of council, there is no time frame. The only thing is there is at the end, it's supposed to be done within 24 hours. So you could set it months, you know, a month ahead of time if we felt we needed it in August. It doesn't have to be at the 24th hour. It can be set at any point, a special meeting of council. So,
and just one more question, Madam Clerk, or actually, Madam, this may be directed to the mayor. The region has 40-some councilmen. Did they go ask everyone for what their vacation schedule is for the summer months? Like, I'm quite sure that 40 council members of regional council don't weigh in on the schedule, do they?
Well, there are in fact 31, and
30.
they don't. They said it, and well, look, you're absolutely correct in saying that we opened up a can of worms last year, perhaps. But the reality is, what I see is that staff did come forward with this recommendation. So staff are making the recommendation. We are simply approving it. The fact that it's gone through all of us now has tied up time. To speaking to Councillor Rayner's point, we didn't need to speak to it. We could just simply go ahead. So no, it's set, and I see that this as being a recommendation of staff for our summer meeting schedule, so I'll be in support. Thank you. No further.
Thank you. Councillor Riley, go ahead.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. And so just to kind of get it clear, if I can go maybe through you to the clerk or the CEO, what is the actual, so procedurally, we're supposed to have one in July and one in August. And the other concern is public opinion as well. This looks like we're, trying to get out of work. And I don't necessarily think that's the case here. But what is the actual reason? Is it just because people want to bank in and take 6 to 8 weeks of vacation time all at once? Because if that is the case, I do think that is something to be concerned about, because there's many people who are struggling to feed their families who could only fantasize about having a vacation. So again, making this decision at this point without knowing for sure what the summer months are going to look like, what the rules are going to be, like, I just think it's wrong. But through you to, let's say, the clerk, because I see Joanne's name up, like, what is the rationale behind calling it so like 7-8 months long before the decision that really needs to be made?
Thank you, Councillor. Madam Clerk.
I was told this probably in 2016 or 17. Councillor Ganam probably recalls, and the mayor probably recalls. We brought a report later in the spring, and we were asked why we had waited so long, and we were told at that time that this report should be coming in January, so that council knows the schedule, and staff know the schedule well in advance, so that they can make their plans, personal plans, ahead of time. So, they know when they can take vacation, or, whatever their personal, lives bring to them. So that's what I was told. And again, it was done in 2016 or 17. And I think Councillor Ganan did refer to that in her points. In respect to staff taking 6 to 8 months off, or 6 to 8 weeks off, we've never done that. It requires us to have special permission to do that. The most we can take is 2 weeks at a time. So we, like I said, never seen a staff person take that. This year, 2020, was very particularly hard for all of senior staff and managers to take time off. And this is probably one of the worst years I've ever seen with carryover of staff's time. Because we carried over vacation because we could not get away. So anyway, so just to remind you of that that carryover plus what we earn each year, it is quite a bit. But like I said, and I think we do work hard, and I think that having some time off is important for our mental health and to be with our families.
Well, thank you.
Some of us have missed that.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I certainly don't want to sound like minimalizing that in any capacity. I think that the biggest focus here too is looking at it from a broader sense. Like, it's, I get it. Like, everybody can take time off. And if you're saying the most someone could take is 2 weeks off, that's great. And I feel like out of 365 days and 52 weeks of the year, there's certainly lots of time to do that. I don't think it all needs to be channeled towards those months personally. And I get it. And we've had an unprecedented year, and it's been very complicated. But again, I'm going to crutch back on the community. There's many people who would just love to ensure that they could still pay their bills at the end of the day, who are still making it work, and they have to do what they have to do. But this is now before us to decide, and I'm still going to oppose this. I'm sorry, and I realize that might not be the favorable thing, but I don't think it's in the best interest of the community, just because I think we're doing this too early and I would like to see this pushed back later on as a decision, or as Councillor Trombetta had mentioned, maybe the possibility of changing how the procedural bylaw has it written. But right now we're going against the procedural bylaw to make an exception for a situation we don't have any idea. And that's what I was saying before. This did not actually make any logistical sense to do this at this point and an unprecedented time without knowing what's actually going to come down the line. And then we're possibly might have to call a special council meeting, and then it's going to be a whirlwind of stuff. And when we tried to call a special council meeting last June, it was chaos. It was chaos for everybody. And let's not forget about that. You know what I mean? So do we really want to be in that, or would we rather plan more accordingly and be prepared, as Councillor Rayner said, and do things in an order that actually works for everyone? And if it turns out we don't need it, well, then great. Everyone has extra time. So anyways, I'm still in opposition to this. That'll be it for my questions and comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Yonker, I saw your hand up there. Do you have something to add?
No, I'll let the clerk go ahead.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair Trombetta. I just want to point out that there is only 2 summer months that right, everybody's homeschooling right now, but the children are off, and staff want to spend time with their kids as well as you do, and or their grandchildren, like in my case. So that's why I want holidays in the summer. And I only got 8 weeks to do that. And if, we have to work around other staff members as well. We can't leave the office and leave it vacant. So we have to work around staff, other staff have to work other staff, and it just snowballs from there. This is what we've done in the past. The procedural bylaw, we've always reduced the meetings down in in July and August and December. This is no different. This is no different of a year, anything to do with that. We found that last year we did the 1 meeting, it worked. We weren't it wasn't overly done on the July meeting. The content was fine, the length was fine. I know that the meetings can change. And again, if we find that we're overabundance with items, we can call the special meeting at any point. It doesn't have to be at the 24th hour. And I honestly, I understand like people are having problems paying their bills, but I don't understand why we're being taken to task because we're trying to set a schedule. I don't understand what those 2 items have to do with each other. I get it, believe me, I get it. But I don't understand how taking or making a schedule has anything to do with people paying their bills and having meetings. I don't see a coalition there. And yeah, anyways, those are my comments.
Sorry, everyone. I see a lot of hands going up. I know everybody wants to get in there. I had the Madam CAO, and then I know we've been belaboring this quite a bit. And, prior to, I had some discussions at committee, and it's kind of, sorry, Madam CAO, we'll get to you right next. I had some discussions at committee with the clerk, and, I think this needs council support. And I did suggest, but I can't make the amendment because I am chair, but I did suggest I know looking at the further the schedule and talking to the clerk, that AMO is the week of the 16th. So the will of council to put on August 23rd, if necessary, meeting in there, we can add that in. And I think that hopefully that would get all council support and we can move forward from this. That's just a suggestion I have. And hopefully maybe somebody from committee can make that amendment and we can move forward. And I think I'm hoping we'd have the support of council. We can move forward for this. So I have this Madam CAO, and then sorry, by all means, I've lost track of everybody else because everybody kept throwing their hands up like crazy. So I'll look to my right. I think I got Councillor Gannan, I got Councillor Riley, I got Councillor Bradbrick. And Councillor Rayner. So for the last time, all council, not for Madam CAO, but then afterwards for the last time for all council, please, from there. Go ahead, Madam CAO.
Thank you, Chair Trombetta. Actually, I'm quite pleased if you want to, I'm not a councillor. If the councillors want to go first, I'm good with that. I wanted to raise 3 points. First of all, the clerk was following the directions she was given by council in past years. This is just a regular protocol in terms of modifying the calendar schedule per the procedural bylaw. 2, this is not about vacations. It's actually a lot about getting some of the work plan implemented during the summer months as well. It's the same group of people that write the reports and prepare the material that actually do the implementation of the programs. And so it's basically a capacity issue as well. If council's will is to do more meetings, we're going to have to reduce some other work. And it's just a matter of give and take. And then the third piece would be, as the clerk has mentioned, the procedural bylaw. This is certainly an area that I'm going to mark on my whiteboard so that we make sure we look at it when we review the procedural bylaw. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gannan.
So I wanted to speak a little bit about the procedural bylaw as well. Councillor Riley seemed to think that the summer months were written into that, and they're not. We are not going against procedural bylaw. What our clerk has said to us is the procedural bylaw is very clear about when we should have meetings. It tells us that it should be, a council meeting should be Monday at 7. It tells us exactly, you know, when the committee meeting should be, the, you know, what month, what week in the month, and so on. But it says nothing specific about the summer because of all the reasons that have been already discussed, and I won't go back into that. But I did want to reassure you that we are not going against procedural bylaw to be putting in this schedule, but we are forcing our clerk to go against what we asked her to do, and that was to make sure that we get this at the beginning of the year so that people can plan and so that staff can plan. And so I think Councillor Jonker's point about parks was a very good one in terms of needing to plan ahead of time. Staff need to be able to plan. We need to be able to plan. But as long as there's an opportunity for us to have a meeting, if the workload looks like it's piling up, and our clerk has said twice now that we can call that meeting in May for August if we need to. We could call it in June if we need to. I do like, though, Councillor Trombetta, your suggestion that it could be now to send an ending to all of this, put it in and take it out if we don't need it. I would support that also.
Thank you, Councillor Gannon. Councillor Riley, and then I got Councillor Broderick, then I got Councillor Rayner.
Okay. And so I have no problem bringing that motion forward. And so at the end of this year, I will bring that motion forward. I just wanted to mention, because the clerk had asked the connection between people that are, you know, without work versus vacation time, and that was never supposed to be one-on-one against each other, but more or less the idea of that my understanding from how it's being presented and things that have come up is that because of the vacation time and everyone wants to take advantage of the summertime, that's how it's being sold. And I was more focusing on the idea of there's people who fantasize about going back on vacation and what that looks like. Meanwhile, they're struggling to make ends meet, is more or less what I was trying to put 2 and 2 together, not so much an attack against vacations. I understand the importance of that. But I appreciate what Madam CEO had also talked about, which I didn't think was identified here, which was catching up on workload and everything else that we don't necessarily get to see as council, but necessarily takes place. But I still don't like the idea that it's not in there. I still think it's too premature. So at this point, I'll bring the motion forward, or the friendly amendment that we add August, your suggestion of August 23rd, if necessary, and then we can decide that the month of June, whether or not staff's going to be able to have a better forecast of what that looks like. So I'll move that if somebody will second that, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Councillor Riley. Thank you. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Chair. Not to throw this off the rails, but I just wonder if we did add in the wording around the August meeting, if necessary, if that's really going to then limit staff in looking throughout the year and trying to pick their vacation time and do the work plan as the CAO had indicated. Also, I think from the lens of the public, I wonder if you put that wording in and then just don't go ahead and have the meeting, that it may be seen as more of a negative than not having the meeting at all.
Okay.
That's my comments. Thank you.
Would TBD be okay, to be determined? Maybe. Councillor Rayner, did you have one more comment? Then I'm going to go to the CEO and wrap this up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It's just that, like, we have the clerk and we have the deputy clerk, and we don't have the clerk with us through all committee meetings. We have a deputy clerk. So, like, I'm away for the month of January usually. So, I mean, I miss the meetings regardless. That's just the way it is. I have my vacation, like the clerk was discussing. She has her summer vacation while I go where the temperature is the same in the winter here. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is if you set the times in the summer, if the director can't be there, there is the backup, and the director's work is done, just like the clerk has a deputy clerk. And counselors, if they're away on vacation, then you're away on vacation. We don't have to have every member of council there. It's nice to have it, but people have to go on vacation. And to try to juggle everything around, to try to make everything work with the number of people we got, it is really a lot of time and a lot of effort. If you can attend it, if you know the times of the meetings up ahead, which we will for way down in July and August and September, then you could book accordingly. And if not, you're going to be away. There is backup staff that can attend the meeting just like the clerk does. So I really don't see why this would impede anything unless it's an absolute mandatory essential that the directors have to be there for the presentation. It's nice to have them, but they have a right to go on vacation and they shouldn't be juggling around like crazy to try to make it work either. It should be, you know, it either fits or it doesn't fit. I've got a backup. Don't worry about it. That's kind of the way I looked at it, but.
I'm going to go. Thank you, Councillor Rayner. I'd like to go to the Madam CAO and then just back to, do you have something else, Councillor Yonker? Okay. I just don't want to get it. I know we've talked about this really long, so I'm trying to get this finished as best as we can, but I'll come back to you, Councillor Yonker, to be fair, because I did go back to other members of council. So Madam CAO.
Thank you again, Chair Trombetta. This is just me as advisor to council, and the worry about perception for the public. The two other municipalities where I've been the CAO, they actually had no meetings during the summer. And the reason being is that it was basically a work plan, let the staff get the work done and carry things out. It had no negative impact. And I think maybe once in my 15-year, or I guess probably 13-year career there, we probably had one special meeting. So that's my advice. It does not mean that staff are not around and doing the work. Trust me, the work plan, and we are improving it through the reporting through the corporate plan about how much is actually getting done. So in terms of governance and attending the meeting, this is not about the staff just attending one meeting. It's all the work that goes involved in terms of getting reports ready for those meetings. So it's whether it's the director or the person acting in their place, there's somebody who's preparing the report and putting together all the research and analysis that goes into providing council with a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam CAO. Councillor Yonker, and then I will go back to Councillor Riley because I know he had an amendment to this. Councillor Yonker.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. I think what we can do is put this, what the staff has put forward, put it to a vote. And then if it doesn't get done, then we go look at an amendment. I am baffled by how complicated this has to be. We seen last summer, this worked fine. Our staff, our directors are all saying this works fine. And it's very easy to say in June, wow, looks like we're going to need an extra meeting in July or in August. Like, I don't see how this is complicated. So I just say, let's put it to a vote and move on from there. And then if it doesn't get through, then we can do an amendment. But I would like to have it put to a vote now. And then if it's defeated.
Let me just double check with the clerk. Madam Clerk, if there's an amendment on the board, maybe just help me out here. If there's an amendment on, do I have to go to the amendment first or I got to go to the vote? I have to go to the amendment first, correct?
Correct. Get a seconder. But you again, if it's turned down, then the original motion goes back on the table.
Just for clarification, it's been a while since that's happened to me. So, okay, Councillor Riley, do you have an amendment there for this motion?
So the amendment is your suggested amendment, which is that we add August 23rd as the potential summer month, I guess, committee of whole meeting there. And then, I just need a seconder before this can go to vote. So I don't get a seconder, it's all for nothing.
Sure. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll do it.
Okay, Councillor Rayner. You see, so the motion on the floor is that adding in, and I guess if the term is if necessary or to be determined, August 23rd meeting. It's moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Rayner. All those in support of that?
Support.
And I would have also supported it because I came up with it. So that does fail. So that doesn't have enough support there. So we'll move on to the original motion. Did I have a mover and seconder for that, Madam Clerk? I think I did, obviously.
And I called a recorded vote.
And Councillor Riley, recorded vote, correct?
Yes, it was moved by Councillor Gannan, seconded by Councillor Jonker. And sorry, I just have to go into the resolution to get a recorded vote ready.
Sure, take your time.
Okay. Councillor Bradrick.
Approved. I don't know what the right word is.
That's right. That's right.
Support. That's
Support.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Gannan.
Support.
Councillor Jonker,
Support.
Councillor Rayner,
Do not support.
Councillor Riley,
Oppose.
Mayor Bosma,
In favor.
Councillor Trombetta,
Opposed.
um,
4-3.
4-3, sorry, 4-3, it carries.
Thank you. Good wholesome discussion from my first administration chair meeting. Thank you, members of committee. Moving on. Sorry, let me get my place. My screen blacked out here. Moving on here. Item A0421, Treasurer Director of Finance Donna DeFilippo's recommendation report, T03-2021, December 2020 budget status report. A recommendation that report T03-2021 dated January 18th, 2021 regarding the December 2020 budget status report be received for information and any excess Safe Restart Phase 1 funds not required to offset the 2020 COVID-19 pressures be transferred to the contingency reserve to be accessed to assist with the 2021 COVID-19 impacts. I need a mover for this. Councillor Jonker, a seconder. Councillor Bradrick, that was pretty close. I didn't know what to do there. All those in favor, or sorry, questions or comments for this? Sorry.
Yes, I have some questions.
Sure, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. Going over this, I have some questions with regards to the MERS. The closure necessary for compliance to provincial orders resulted in a lost revenue 2020 of $133,000. Through you to the Director of Finance, was that part of the money that was the $243,558 that you came up with that number as a total cost of the COVID for 2020 at this time?
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner. Yes, it is. If you look at Appendix D under closures, you'll see a loss of revenue there of $133,389.
Okay, so we did receive money. Now, what about the situation that we have right now that it's down again for the second time? I believe it was down March and April last year, was it not? And now it's completely down again. Is that not correct? Through to the Director of Finance, through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner. Yes, you're correct. Due to the current state of COVID-19, the rec center is closed. So we're working on the 2021 budget. And in that budget, you're going to see our estimate of the impacts of COVID on the budget. And those additional expenses or loss in revenue will be offset by a transfer from the contingency reserve. In that reserve, there will be the unused Safe Restart funds from 2020. And we also have received $66,000 for 2021. We'll see if that's enough to cover our costs. It probably won't be. And we're hopeful that the province and the feds, seeing that this phase 2 of COVID seems to be worse than the first one, they'll give us some additional funds to help with our costs and loss in revenue.
Okay, I'm just wondering, in this particular case, there's another factors that bother me about this. We've got no revenue for this building, and we've got no use of this building, and basically it's to stop the spread of the disease that potentially could be fatal to humans. Even with the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines out, there's still only a 95% supposedly vaccination against this, which means 5%, which means every facility, including ours, could be a potential disease transmission center for years to come. So I'm not sure how the province is going to handle this, because this is not 100% this vaccine, which means transmissions can still exist, which means restrictions may still go on. So the initial investment of $31 million on a 15.2% tax increase to the taxpayers is turning out to be a disaster right now. Is there anything we can do with regards to sending a note or something to the province to help incur the costs down the road that this building has inflicted on the taxpayers, which initially was for good purpose, but now turns out to be a deadly situation that would not be good for one's health in the future. So I'm not really sure the use of this building down the road, and I'm not sure that it's fair that because the province and the medical staff are saying all the information they're saying about this particular disease, that the long-term prognosis of this building is good, but the financial cost to the taxpayers, who a lot of them are suffering now because of loss of work or whatever with COVID, they're paying for a building they can't even use. So is there anything we can do through to the Director of Finance? Right now, you're saying, that's why I asked the initial question. Right now, the initial cost is being absorbed by the province, but that was in 2020. And I believe you said we got an extra 66,000 or something this year, added to the 86 or something for last year, makes 152. Yes, it is 66 and 86, but that's going to be used up quickly, is it not?
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Rayner. I know I saw the CAO's hand up. Did you want Donna to answer that first, Madam CAO? Way in here.
Could she answer that question? I mean, we're going to use this money up quickly, and the costs associated with keeping this building for no good purpose. Can we get some of this back? Is there anything we can do to absorb some of the cost of the taxpayer for a building that was supposed to be recreational, but has now turned into a massive liability?
Thank you, Councillor. Director of Finance, Ms. DeFilippis, and then I'm going to go to the CAO.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, can the question be repeated? I'm not sure what I'm answering.
The question is we've only got 66, we got 86,000 carried over, I believe you said, from the initial 329
yes.
we had last
yes.
year. And then we've got another 66 that we received on December the 16th. So that makes it 152,000. But you've already said the closures in 2020 was 133,389. So based on that information, it's not going to take very long to chew up this 152,000 to offset the cost of the MERS to the taxpayer, because at least we're getting money back for it. But the long-term prognosis is, do you know if we're going to be supported for the rest of the year, that potentially this building's going to be down, or it may be down even longer, as I said, because the vaccine's not 100%. So it's still a disease transmission center, and it may cause a lot of new restrictions as to the amount of people you can have in there, or if you can have people. There's so many unanswered questions in this, but we have a massive financial liability for a building that we've practically hardly ever used. Is there any way to recoup any of this, is what I'm asking in the long term?
Okay, through you, Chairman Trombetta, I'll do my best to answer this question, Councillor Rayner. Excuse me. So during the pandemic, when it started, we always reported our costs, and we did not find out about the money from the province till I think late September. So all along we knew that the extra cost would have to come from a reserve or through some mitigation if possible. So when we're looking at the 2021 budget, it'll be the same situation. We have this funding from the province, and I'll be budgeting for a transfer from the contingency to reserve to cover any other costs. Where we can mitigate, we will. That's something that would be discussed at EOC or at actually our recovery meetings, but that's what we can do. In terms of long-term effects of COVID-19, I'm sorry, I can't answer that because I don't think any of us know the answer to that one, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. Through
Just,
again.
Councillor, I just saw the CAO's hand up, so I think she wanted to weigh in. Do you mind if just maybe she wanted to weigh something in there?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Trombetta, Councillor Rayner. Another point of information is that we are in conversation with the province to let them know about the challenges of the funding that, well, first of all, we were very appreciative of receiving the funding last year, appreciative of getting that the 66,000 that came in late December, but we are letting them know about our challenges with respect to the budget, and we'll hopefully be able to make that case to them at the Roma conference that's coming up next week. So we are making the pitch to let them know about how hard municipalities are being impacted. However, I will also stress the fact that we did a really good job last year of mitigating a number of the costs as well. And I agree with Donna that in terms of the long-term use of the facility, that's a little bit rhetorical at this time, but we'll certainly keep our eye on that. I understand what your concern is there.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
You have one more thing. I have Councillor Riley, and then I have Councillor Jonker. So you have just floor still yours, but there's two other.
I've just got a few more questions, please.
Sure.
All right, back to the Director of Finance. Donna, that safe restart agreement that we originally got for the 329.8, was that 66,000 also part of that safe restart agreement? And do they know if they're going to have, like, if that's number 2, are they going to have a safe restart agreement number 3? Have you heard if there's anything further coming, especially now that it's getting worse again?
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner, we haven't heard anything about phase 3 of funding. I do believe that, you know, this new phase of COVID, no one was really expecting this to be as bad as it is, I think. The $66,000 is for 2021 and it's a per capita amount. The 329 was also a per capita amount. Obviously, they've changed what they were giving per capita. So we'll have to wait and see if there's another round of funding. As the CAO indicated, it will be brought up at the Roma conference. And our other groups as AMO and MFOA, they're always you know, going to the province on behalf of municipalities. That's the best I can tell you.
All right, thank you. I have one further question then to the CAO, Mr. Chair. I asked last fall to the CAO when it came to the staff that are working at home, are they working to what level as compared to what they were doing at work? And I believe the CAO answered they're doing 100% as they were at work. Is that not correct, Madam CAO?
Through you, Chair Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner, through technology, we've been able to recreate work spaces in people's houses. So they're able to do what they did when at their workplace at the township office at their homes. And I have to say that staff have been incredibly adaptable, and I think the best way to sort of capture the amount of work and the effectiveness of the work is through the report that staff did on the corporate strategic plan that was presented to council last December. We haven't missed a beat.
Okay, so I needed to rephrase that, and I think it should have been a 2-part question. I asked if they're working at 100%, and you said yes, but what I failed to ask, are they working at the 100% workload that they would have had they been at work? That's the other part. You could be 100% of half the work you take home, but are you 100%? In other words, is everything being done as complete as if they were sitting at their desk in the township office? To the CAO, through you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Chair Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner. I think I've just answered that question in that we have recreated the ability to work the same as we were in the office. I think the only thing that we are really missing out on is some of the really great sort of camaraderie that comes when people work in a workplace. That's actually missing. And but through Zoom and through Citrix and through budget software and an ability to deal with things via the website, through our telephone system, through the report of concern. I think we have done a very good job in terms of replicating our normal workload.
Okay, thank you. The only reason, Mr. Chair, that I asked that question was the report from the Director of Finance on Monday, October the 19th. And this is why I asked the CAO that question back then last year. On the last page, page 23 of 45 on the report, it says, and I quote, "In addition, certain employees have been working on modified schedules resulting in a loss of productivity." But the CAO said they were at 100%. And then this report that we're just having tonight, again, from the Director of Finance on the bottom of page 38, it says at the start of this pandemic, certain employee groups adopted work schedules that impeded their ability to attend work on a full-time basis. And a total of 166,000 is attributed to staff time related to the above circumstance. So something's contradicting something here, or I'm not getting the full picture, but the Director of Finance is saying in a report in October that there are some people that are not being productive. And she's got the same statement now with a number attached to it of 166,000. And the CEO says that we're working at 100%. I'm lost. I need help on this. 2 and 2 is not making 4.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. I have both Director of Finance and Madam CAO. It's up to you guys who would like to go first.
I'm going to ask the director to go first because I don't have that little paragraph in front of me right now. I'm looking it up.
Go ahead, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Chairman Trombetta. To Councillor Rayner, I just want to address the 166,000 that you're referring to. So that was at the beginning of the pandemic, where certain, I believe it was outside workers, had a modified schedule where they were broken up into 2 teams, when one team would be working and one team would be at home.
Full-time.
That's what that figure is.
But they're full-time employees.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Yes.
So they weren't working at 100%. Well, so if they're at home, were they at home working 100% and then 100% at work working? Is that what they, is that, but that can't be right because you've still attributed 166,000 of a loss to it.
I could answer some of that, Councillor Rayner, because as Chair of Public Works, I know why that some of them were at home. So what happens is we have 10 laborers or operators, let's just call them. And what happens is during the winter months with pandemic, there was a schedule where there was some on for 1 week, some off for the next week, but they were at home doing relatively training courses via Zoom, that kind of stuff. But the reason why all 10 of them were in is because if there was a COVID outbreak and we do lose all 10 operators, how would we get our roads cleaned through the winter months? So they were working at home, but again, being at home, they were doing, let's say, your WMIS training, your tailgate topics, your training courses that are always offered in the wintertime, but they were split up because we couldn't have them all working out of the yard coming into the same building. Like I said, if someone got COVID, then they'd all have to self-isolate and then we have no one to clean our roads. So that's where I was just trying to add to that. So
Councillor Trombetta, I understand what you're saying, but if that was constructive work that would have warranted them being the equivalent of being at work, then the Director of Finance would not have said that it's $166,000 attributed to time related to the above. Like there's a number associated with it that appears that this was a cost that we did not receive back. So it's like they were not working.
Madam CEO, do you want to weigh in there, please? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Chair Trombetta. You were correct in describing the initial operating schedule where we had 2 teams and we were doing that as an insurance policy to make sure that we were able to continue to do work and we wouldn't lose our entire staff group. And in some cases, they were the outside workers. They don't have an ability to work from home, so it was a very distinct decision. And if there was ever going to be a big snow event, then those staff would have been called in. So yes, there were at the early part, the outside workers, we had team A and team B. It didn't last, I think it probably lasted 6 weeks. And I'm going to actually fact check that one before I specifically say that. It was a very short time during the first part of the pandemic, and we were really concerned about the operations. We're actually looking at that again right now. We are really worried about our workforce in this regard, and we're trying to figure out business continuity plans for our operations group. And we will report those dollars as well, just as the treasurer did in this last report.
So is that, once again, and this will be my last thing, is that 166,000 a loss to the township of work that wasn't done because of, as Councillor Trombetta said, half were on, half were off. We didn't get as much done at home as you'd want, but the attributable cost because they weren't at work and we didn't get things accomplished was 166,000. Is that not correct? Even like you said, Madam CEO, for 4 to 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it was exactly what the statement was from October that said there were some, how should I put it? There was certain employees that have been on modified schedule resulting in loss of productivity. Does that explain the 166,000?
If that question is directed to me, Chair, yes. Then yes. That is what the treasurer had just answered, yes.
All right, so they weren't, so my answer to the initial question was when I asked you if they're working at 100% at home, they were not working at 100% at home because we got dinged with 166,000 because they weren't working at home. That's what my point was. It was a long way to get around it, but I think I made it.
Well, I want to clarify that if that's all right. Councillor, when you first asked that question, I didn't know if you were referring to our township staff or the operational staff. I'm going to still confirm that the rest of the group that have an ability to work from home are working to their best capacity and as close to 100% as we can.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
I got Councillor Jonker and then I got Councillor Riley. Did anybody else have their hands up? I know people, Mr. Mayor, right after that. Awesome, big, nice meeting tonight. Go ahead, Councillor Jonker.
Basically, I just wanted to point out what we got to remember is when the pandemic started, we shut things down because we had to, but we also had a motion and we discussed it at a council meeting. We have to make sure our staff still has bread on the table. So that's where you're looking at, you know, so you're losing revenue in the fact that you still have to pay these people that that aren't able to come into work. Right, so there's that as well, but they were also being split shifted, so it made sense. And we did, as council, say yes, we want to make sure our staff is still getting paid. So there's a whole bunch of things that are in that 100 and something number, and I think our treasurer's done a great job. And yeah, it's been a tough time, and we got through it great. And hats off to all head departments and all our staff for continuing to work as a team and function well. And every business got hit by loss of time from staff and paying staff to continue to be on call when they needed to be and to make sure that we can get our roads clear and whatever. So they did a good job.
Thank you, Councillor Jonker. Councillor Riley, and please bear with me, any members of committee, if I jumped and went to someone before someone else. Just a lot of hands are going up. So go ahead, Councillor Riley. Then I got Mr. Mayor, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Jonker, afterwards.
Thank you. I guess just I have 2 points, other points I want to make, but just what Councillor Jonker just said there. I don't know, maybe the way he explained it, I'm a little confused. I don't think we ever had an item that came forward that where staff's jobs were in jeopardy and we had to pass a resolution to ensure it kept them fed. I don't know, maybe I misunderstood what he's trying to sell there. I did not gather that. I know we passed the resolution to put the CAO, the director of finance, and the mayor in charge if there was emergencies that need to be addressed for a period of time until council as a whole could start acting at full capacity again. So I don't know if he's getting the two confused, but I don't recall what he's talking about. So maybe some clarity later. But I think this is, it's getting back on topic here. I think this is a shining example of going forward with what the budget's going to look like this year. I think we have to tighten up the lip here. I don't see us passing anything over 1.5% to 2% this year. You know, if with inefficiencies running the way they are, we have no idea what the long term is. It's great. I love hearing that the CEOs say that they've managed to, I guess, replicate the work environment from home so that it's improving the efficiency. So that means we will not see any more loss in revenue, or not loss of revenue, but loss in work efficiency in any capacity. Otherwise, at that point, we have to start asking more questions. But I just wanted to put the bug out there that as we start to approach budget month, which is going to start taking place shortly, our open houses in the beginning of February, there's no way this council, or I hope we don't have to deal with it through what comes forward. Like, this is not a spending year. If anything, this is us settling for less probably for the next 2 to 3 years. So unfortunately, I know there's a lot of projects and aspirations on the work, but I think we got to look out for the best interests of our residents or in our community. Nobody has money for anything. So I just wanted to make the message there so staff can hear loud and clear. Like, let's just look for not spending anything that we don't need to spend unless it's absolutely necessary. And then I want to see us utilize our surplus and maximization of what we can do in our reserves if it is an absolute expense that's necessary. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Riley. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I want to make sure that the previous councilor that spoke understands what our staff is telling him, because the previous councilor often misrepresents an answer that he gets and then uses that like a billy club for the next several years, keeps bringing it up. And I'm
point of order, Mr. Chair. Can the mayor specify who he's talking about? Is he addressing it to me or is he addressing Councilor Rayner?
Councilor that spoke.
Which councilor is that, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, hold on. Let me have order here, gentlemen. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so Councilor Rayner. Councilor Rayner raised up a series of issues.
With honest questions that were asked.
Through the chair, Mr.
I want to make sure, like, because I as he concluded there, he made a statement that I think was like the conclusion that he closed off his account with. I want to make sure that he understands what the staff was saying, because if it's not corrected tonight and set right in the record, I fear that will be used over and over. And it's something that I've experienced where a miscommunication or misunderstanding at a certain point got brought up over and over and over and over and over again, whether it was a Y or whether it was the MERS or some of those things. So I want to be absolutely crystal clear that Councillor Rayner understands that Madam CAO said that staff have been operating at capacity, and the strategic plan update that was given proves that they have not only been able to adjust to COVID, but they were able to complete their work plans to the maximum. They were working at 100%. And then it was as Councillor Rayner was fading that he said something that was concerning to me. And so I just want to make sure absolutely crystal clear that we do not leave this meeting with that hanging, that somehow Councillor Rayner can come back and say that go off and suggest that staff have not been operating at 100%. The strategic plan is proof positive. The completion that was given to us, the report that was given, it's very important that I'm absolutely convinced it's important to get this crystal clear. So I'm gonna say it as that the strategic plan update is proof positive that staff has worked at 100%. In fact, I'm going to go farther and say 110%, given the challenges of COVID, have not only completed their work, but did so in an environment that required extra special attention and commitment. And we see that not only in the strategic plan, but also a discussion that we had earlier this evening in the fact that many of them have carried over a lot of vacation pay, so not a vacation time, because they forwent vacations and worked instead in order to complete the work. So I in no way want any report, because if I hear that any report going from this council suggests that our staff have not worked at 110%, I will absolutely be—
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say something right now.
No. Mr. Chair, I have the floor. I want—
It's derogatory what he's saying.
I call point of privilege, Mr. Chair. He is derogatory towards one of the council members. So at this point, I would invoke point of privilege.
I'm not derogatory. I am making sure.
I have the floor, Mr. Mayor.
He's attacking the councilor. Chair, you have to get control of this.
I would like to speak, everyone. Thank you. Okay, there's a point of order called. We are being a little bit direct. I get it. You know, when it does come off, and hold on, Mr. Mayor, when we do come off and we challenge each other, it does come off direct, and that's why the point of orders are called. You know, you're entitled to your opinion. I get it, but when we come off direct and attacking other members of council, it does come off a little bit
you know
strong.
What? You know what,
Mr. Chair, can I speak?
Mr. Chair,
you'll have the floor, Mr.
This
Mayor.
summer, at a special council meeting, I sat and I took direct criticism from every member of this council, including yourself, Councillor Riley, Councillor Rayner. I took, and Councillor Cody. I took direct hits, even from Councillor Gannan, who was the chair, but I received direct, and it was a difference of opinion. It was a difference of opinion. And I received, so Council.
I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong.
My point is very simple. I know I am calling out Mr. Councillor Rayner.
I'm just trying to keep order, Mr. Mayor. That's all I'm trying. I'm just trying to keep so we can move forward. I'm not saying what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Mr. Chair, I have not spoken a lot this evening. I know many people have, and the meeting's getting kind of long. I did not participate in the other one, but I do have an opportunity to speak. Do I not?
No, and I'm giving you the opportunity. I'm just trying to get you back on track. I was not trying to stop you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to get you back on track.
Yes. I want to make sure that all the members of this council, and the reason I called out Councillor Rayner is because he said something as he faded away that I want to make sure doesn't get misconstrued or grabbed onto by the media or anybody. I want to make sure that this council and all the members of this council who are on this meeting absolutely understand that staff worked 100%. And I, talked about how they were able to complete their strat plan. So I just want to make sure that that's on the record so that nothing goes forward from here suggesting anything less than full engagement of our staff to complete the duties of our township. That's what I want to get on the record. I want to make sure that we don't go from here suggesting anything otherwise from any member of council. And yes, I did call out Councillor Rayner because it was a fading comment of his, and I just wanted to make sure that none of us latched on to that and made it. I understand.
I wasn't trying to stop you, Mr. Mayor. I was just trying to keep order as chair.
I understand, but I was interrupted, and so I get a little passionate because I have to listen, right, Councillor?
I've been in that position many times as my
exactly. And you know what? I borrowed some of that from my experiences here. Just to make sure that we get things,
especially through Zoom and a lot of people jumping in. It's very difficult. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to keep order. So please, everyone, as we see it, we're moving forward. Give your comments. Let's try not to be so direct. We know where they're directing, but let's just try to keep and move forward from this.
Councillor Trombetta.
None further, Chair.
Thank you.
None further. I yield the floor.
Very quickly, Councillor Rayner, and then I have Councillor Riley. I think that's all I have after that.
Thank you. Further to the mayor's comments, what I've been saying is direct quotations from the reports from staff. I am not making anything up. I'm not trying to make anything out of something that isn't there. I'm reading it directly. The mayor said 100% to 110%. That's what staff are working at. I have two reports here from the Director of Finance. And again, one is from October the 19th, and I'll quote, "In addition, certain employees have been working on modified schedule resulting in loss of productivity."
Councillor Rayner,
the one from tonight says at the start of this pandemic, certain employee groups adopted work schedules that impeded their ability to attend work on a full-time basis, costing $166,000. Okay, that's all I'm saying. That's all there. But that says that that's not 100% that they're working, because that's what this report says. It's not. And I'm not trying to make this up. I'm just bringing it out front to find out the truth. That's all I wanted.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. And we will have many more discussions as a committee as we're going forward into budget time. As we get forward to budget time, I'm quite sure we're going to have a lot more conversations. Councillor Riley for the last time, and I'm going to move forward, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, I call a point of privilege, which is different than a point of order. I understand, and I asked the mayor to clarify who he was making his remarks towards, and he did. And at the beginning, I had no problem with the mayor's remarks, but as he went further and further into that, it became more increasingly clear that he was attacking a councillor. So I just wanted to make a note that I actually, for the record, I called point of privilege because no member of council is supposed to attack anybody. As far as the mayor's comments referring back to, I'm assuming he's talking the special council meeting back in June, those were in reactions to comments that he had gone on the radio and made. And so we were speaking more specifically to our opinions on the matter of his representation of the community. I don't think the two are the same in this situation here. So I just want to clarify that for the record, because they are not. We weren't necessarily attacking him as a human being in any capacity, where what I was getting there near the end, because maybe he was getting passionate and fired up, was that he was just kept restating what he'd already state to almost, I guess, not derogatory, to minimize Councillor Rayner's concerns and comments. So that's where we heard it once, and then he kept going on and going on as if he was trying to make sure that he raked him to the coals. So I just want to clarify that for the record.
I got that clarification from him. We did mention that we're trying to get off being direct to each other, but we're trying to get our points across, which we all have been doing. So I'd like to move forward from this. Seeing that there's any other questions or comments for this, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Support. And that's supported. Moving on. Item A0521, Treasurer Director Finance Donna DeFilippis, Information Report T02-2021, West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Financial Contribution. Recommendation report that T02-2021 West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Financial Contribution dated February 18, 2021 be received and as an item for information. I need a mover for that. Councillor Riley, Councillor Bradrick, all those, any comments or questions? Sorry. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Support.
And that's carried. Moving on, item A06-21, Deputy Treasurer Caitlin Hall, Treasurer Director of Finance Donna DeFilippis, Recommendation Report T05-2021, the discontinuation of the water shutoff practices. The recommendation in this report of 05-21 dated January 18th, 2021 regarding discontinuation of water shutoff practices be received, and that the following changes to the bylaw 2004-42, being a bylaw to regulate the supply of water and provide of the imposition of collection of water rates, be approved and effective January 18, 2021. A, amend Schedule B, Section 3, other charges to include a section to state a $20 taxable administration fee to be charged upon the transfer of an overdue water balance to associated property tax account. And B, amend Schedule B, Section 3, other charges, Part C, to replace the wording of water shutoff notice to second reminder notice. That additional housekeeping changes to the bylaw 2004-42 wording be accepted and presented. I need a mover for this. Councillor Yonker, seconded by Councillor Ganan. Comments or questions on this? Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I wanted to mention that if I can maybe ask a question first and then I'm gonna have a comment. If I could go through you to, I guess, the Director of Finance. I'm just kind of curious where the actual dollar figure, like what formula was used to calculate the administration fees in terms of what was going to be applied when there's 2 attempts made and there's no payment. And the reason, actually, maybe I can put my statement at the same time. The reason I ask is through one of the boards I sit on through MPI, we had a similar situation where people were just not, were having, not to default, but behind in what they owed. And so our staff went above and beyond and did the impossible mission of actually reaching out to every single customer and talking with them on the phone to the best of their capacity, because they were understanding that the postal service is overloaded and bombarded and things weren't necessarily getting to where they needed to go. And I was wondering if maybe a better explanation or a better outreach to work with people, like what is the actual number of people that aren't that are behind? Are we talking about a couple hundred people? Because I'd rather see our community or our staff work with our community than stick them a $20 fine, especially in a time where people are, you know, hard up for money and barely, you know, keeping afloat. So if I could ask where the figure came from, and if we could actually, you know, try to work more with our community than penalizing them.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Riley. If you will, I'm just going to explain the process a little bit so you have a better understanding of what's happening.
Thank you.
So I'll take December's billing as an example. So water bills went out the last week of December, and that would be for consumption basically for the months of October, November, December, right? Because we do quarterly. So that bill will go out and it has a due date of 30 days. So it'll be due the 1st of February. What happens at that point is a first reminder notice is sent out where we add the 5%, which is part of the bylaw. So it's a late penalty that you get if you don't pay your bill. And that's actually made aware to customers when they get the first bill. It says if you don't pay on time, you will get, you know, a late penalty charge. That letter goes out without any additional fees. Then we send out our first reminder notice. That's the $24 fee. With that notice, we ask people, please pay your water bill, please call, please make arrangements. I want to make it very clear that we do our best to make arrangements with the public. We don't have a full-time water position, a water clerk. We have a water tax clerk. If we had, you know, more water clerks, we could call every single person personally and make a lot of, you know, personal arrangements. We wait for them to call us. It's just, that's the best we can do. But we do accept payment plans. If all else fails, in the past, we would actually have our water operators go out and shut off the water. That was, I think, a little embarrassing. It's not really what we want to do to our customers. And at that point, there would be a $60 fee added. So in terms of the fees that we do have, we look at the staff time that's spent on dealing with all these customers. We look at the hourly rate plus benefits, and that's how we come up with these fees. They're also in line when we looked at the Niagara municipalities. We wanted to make sure, you know, we're in line. And I'm quite sure the $20 fee to add to taxes, I think it's the lowest, it's lower than any other municipality that we saw. The use of water, I think if you remember from the water presentation that was done a few months ago, cost of water is relatively inexpensive if you look at, you know, what it costs to buy a bottle of water. And we really do try to work with the customer, but we have a lot of our costs to pay, and we have to pay the region for the treatment and for the wastewater, and we pay those bills monthly. So we have to do our best to collect as well.
So if I could ask a follow-up question, Mr. Chair. So is it safe to assume that because we have to carry that shortfall that we're paying some interest or penalties of our own? Like
no, we don't.
If we're putting money out, we have to be taking it from somewhere, right?
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have enough funds to cover that, because you have to realize even our natural billing is way behind, right? Because we're paying the region monthly and we only charge out quarterly. We are well aware of difficult circumstances customers have. We do work with them, but there comes a point where the township, we need to collect and not have it on a cost to all the other customers that do pay.
Okay, one more question for now. And then out of curiosity, if you don't have this stat with you, I understand this is probably should have thought of it sooner. Do you know how many people right now are behind? Like how many homes, I guess? And for people who rent, and I'm going to apologize, maybe some ignorance here. If I own a rental building and I rent it out to like 30 people, how does that work if the water portion is actually not part of the rent? And maybe it is. I'm just trying to figure out if some landlord's going to find out that they got stuck with X amount of dollars that they weren't able to collect.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, I don't know how many people owe. I will tell you that typically when it comes to our when we get close to water shutoffs, we typically have about 100 on the list. And then what we find is that they slowly come in to pay, you know, about 2 weeks before the actual shut off happens. And I think maybe on a shut off day, that maybe there would be 10 that we would actually have to go out and shut off. Okay, so that we do our best. In terms of the whole tenant landlord, right now what happens is if owner of a property wants to put their water account in a tenant's name, they complete a form. When they sign off on that form, they sign off that at the end of the day, the water costs are a cost of the owner, not of the tenant. So how the owner or landlord and a tenant make arrangements for water, it's a business transaction. A landlord is a business person. They are making an income from a tenant, and we feel it's up to them to work on how they're going to collect water from their tenant if they want the account in the tenant's name.
So if they made the effort to put the account in the tenant's name, then that would not be going on taxes. If that was behind, then those would be treated differently.
No, they would if
it still gets dumped on the landlord regardless.
Yeah.
They assume full responsibility regardless of the agreement and the arrangement they have with the tenant.
We are not aware. Sorry, through from Chairman Trebetta, we are not aware of arrangements between tenants and landlords. It's impossible, right? We just ensure that they sign off saying that the owner or landlord is responsible for the water bill.
Okay, I missed that part there. I think I recall you saying the first part where they're signing off. I took that as there was an extra step the town was providing with, but that's not the case. They're just signing off that they accept responsibility regardless of whatever arrangement. So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Sorry, the internet is a little glitchy. I don't know if it's some other people or mine. Sorry about that. So if I missed somebody, I had the mayor and then I had Councillor Bradrick, if I may. And then Councillor Ganan, you have your hand up just there? Okay, so I got the mayor, Councillor Bradrick, then Councillor Ganan. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I just as a matter of perspective, you know, when these issues do come up and you know, we have a small fee, and I'm glad to hear that it's considered the lowest in the region. I'm comfortable with that. Although, you know, I mean, we have expenses to that are also borne, and that's kind of what I want to speak to. For those few customers that have a difficult time paying, well, I think what we need to understand is there's another whole strata of customers that still find it very, very difficult, but do pay. And just recently, just in some social media, I think some of the councillors did even comment to it, but you know, the town's water bills came up and there was another increase, and it kind of course makes some headlines in Facebook and social media world and those kind of things. The reality is, you know, bills are bills, and many people are finding it very difficult. However, they are finding ways to make payments. The director of finance has said are willing to work with people and has a very good positivity rate of people who are in arrears but do actually pay before they're cut off. And so, but we always have to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, those accounts that do actually go arrears get added to, you know, I mean, it's a closed system. And so in the long story short, you know, the latitude that we offer those who can't pay does eventually get put on the burden of those who, you know, in all of those stratas. For some, it's chump change, and but for many people, it is still a very, very challenging bill to meet, and especially, you know, in these days when most bills are going up. So it was a consideration that I just kind of wanted to say, I guess, as a matter of principle or paradigm, that you know, we do have a responsibility, and in that sense, we need to reward those who pay their bills by not being too lenient, and I use that cautiously, but too lenient on those who don't pay. Working with them, of course. So that's kind of the flip side of that. Whatever is not collected does get dumped on the rest, and there are many people who find it difficult to pay, and I always think of them as well, the ones that are doing the good work of paying their bills, but still find it extremely difficult. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bradrick.
I just wonder if I can offer some clarity around Councillor O'Reilly's questioning. I own a property in West Lincoln, which I rent out. And when my tenant wasn't paying the water bill as the owner of the home, I did receive a letter from the township. So I assume that that's common practice. So I was given heads up in advance. And I would assume that protocol will still continue with this new proposed situation about no cutoffs, that there would be a letter that would be going out to the homeowners so that they would know that there is possibility of that money going on the taxes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Gannan.
So I just wanted to weigh in on this as well. I like this approach. I think it's an equitable approach. I think that in talking, Donna, I think I've done this before, but I'm going to do it again, just on the off chance that some councillors don't know, or that perhaps somebody from the public will watch this. If there is an option to seek help elsewhere. We have West Lincoln Community Care that helps with utility bills for many people. Not every time for everybody, but you know, they go through a process and they do keep track. But certainly they would rise to the occasion if somebody was in danger of having their water shut off. So as you are working, Director, with the public, or as your staff are working with people, don't hesitate to offer that as an option to sort of get ahead and get out from under if they're having difficulty with water bill. Donna has her hand up, so maybe she has something to say to that.
Yeah, for sure. Director of Finance.
Through you, Chairman Trebetta, to Council Gannan, absolutely, we do refer them to West Lincoln Community Care.
Good, good. It would be a shame not to connect those. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yonker, did you have your hand up there? Go ahead, Councillor Yonker.
Yeah, I don't know if Councillor Broderick's question got answered, or did it? She was asking if in the new system, the owner of the house would get notification, right? That's what Councillor Broderick was answering, and I don't know if that got answered.
Through you, Chairman Trebetta, to Councillor Broderick and Jonker, yes, this report doesn't list all the letters we send out, but staff always let the owner know and give them an opportunity to pay as well.
Yeah. I lost you there at the end there.
I'm taking off my camera.
But,
so
wait.
this,
Go ahead, Donna.
This report does not outline every single step staff take. They absolutely do let the owner of the property know and give them an opportunity to pay. So there's a lot of back and forth that goes on. There's a lot of staff time spent on these arrear accounts. I can tell you that.
Okay. Yeah, and just thank you, Director, there. Just to add something. Yeah, and me too, they're having a previous rental property. When you have a tenant and they do leave and they don't pay their bill, at the end, it still gets added onto my tax bill and I end up, you know, or the landlord ends up paying it. So it does, there is notification sent to you. And then, like I said, the tenant decided to leave, not pay, and it still always gets put back on the taxes. So it's just common practice. Seeing nothing else there, any other questions for anybody, any members? Sorry, for this item. Don't see anything. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Support. And that carries. Moving on. Item A07-21, Fire Chief Mr. Fisher. Recommendation report WLFD 04-2021. The RFP of the Architectural Services for Design and Contract Administration Service for the new fire station number 2, that WLFD 04-2021, the Architectural Service Design and Contract Administration Services, new fire station number 2, dated January 18th, 2021, be accepted, and that a bylaw be adopted to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement with Raimondo and Associate Architects, Inc., and the Architectural Services for Design and Contract Administration Services for the new fire station number 2 in the amount of $182,721 with taxes included. I need a mover for that. Councillor Riley. Okay, seconded by Councillor Rayner. Questions or comments?
I have a question or two.
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. Through the fire chief. Dennis, there was some discussion thoughts earlier that the amalgamation of the fire station and the Caister Community Center could be put together as one, thereby freeing up the existing fire hall property, which would be quite valuable, I would think, and reducing the cost to the taxpayer of doing this project. Has there been any further discussions with regards to that?
Through you, Councillor Trombetta, or Chair Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner. There was a little bit of discussion about it. One of the things that the challenges with fire halls and emergency services going in and out don't really mix with children's recreational services and playgrounds in the same area.
Yeah,
so we moved away from that.
I was just wondering if, through you, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if there's anything in the design that could be in such a way that we could considerably reduce that threat and still have the opportunity. It's a valuable piece of property that could really be used to further offset the cost of doing a double, really, instead of just building the fire hall, also totally building the new community center on it. And it's a win-win. But like you say, there is conflict there, but I was just wondering if the design or layout could be in such a way that it wouldn't be as bad as we think it might be, but I guess not. Okay.
Anything further, Councillor Rayner? Or?
Yes, I have a question for the Director of Finance, please.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Rayner.
Don, on the second page, you indicate the debenture issuance as a key financial component of this project and required an increase to the tax levy. Have you got a rough idea what that might be at this point? Or I guess it would be more finalized when you're doing the budgets, or when you...
Yeah, through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Rayner. So in the 2021 budget, we actually had included an increase to the levy. I think it's $76,000, but it was removed as an item in order to reduce the levy. So it will be brought forward again in the 2021 budget. So it's the 76,000 is the number you're looking at.
So it's going to be roughly 1%, just a shade more than 1%, maybe, or no, maybe, yeah, a little bit more than 1% is what you figure then.
Yeah, 75,000 is 1%. So you're right on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. Mr. Mayor, and then I got Councillor Riley.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, and just kind of further to what the previous councillor mentioned. I know Councillor Rayner is very passionate about this. He has raised it on a number of occasions. Just a couple other things to consider, and why I think that the current course is the correct course. We do not have like the funds available to consider a joint bill like that. That makes things more complex. Plus, we have a site across the road that's safe. It's not too far away that we already own. So there's no extra cost incurred. And the beauty of that is, like, you know, we would end up with a surplus piece of land with no use. And I only point to the Gainsborough Public Works Yard, which is still in our inventory of real estate that has been vacant now for 12 years. But I think, well, not 12. I think it was knocked down in our first year of my first term, so about 6 years ago. But it's very hard to divest these surplus properties, and so they become a bit of a liability to us. So we might as well use it, in my opinion, for the station. And I think that the current course of putting the fire station on the existing site is the correct course, not only for the reasons that that the fire chief stated, you know, concerns around safety, but because of the logistics involved. And I really just think that, you know, we need to put that discussion to rest and proceed, because the guys at the station down there have languished to a certain extent in that old building far long. I know we gave it a little bit of lipstick a couple of years ago, gave them a washroom and a coat of paint. But I think it's time that the gentlemen over there get a proper station to house their equipment. And so very much glad finally to see this go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those comments. Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll actually echo a little bit what the mayor just said. I definitely think it's probably wise to keep the two properties apart. And I think you don't have to look too far to understand why. Smithville Public School, I think, is a shining example of the obstacle that the fire department has to maneuver around when school is actually in session, and the liabilities that kind of lay before them, and having to not, the school has to be, as soon as the bell goes off, the school has to basically, get the kids in safe view or safe way. And so fire trucks can kind of go through leisurely, or not so much leisurely, but carefully. And so I think, that puts a little bit of stress even on our firefighters. So I would be a little hesitant in trying to put a community building right next to a fire department if we could avoid that in any capacity. But I do appreciate the idea, and I guess being clever in how to maybe capitalize on the financial side of things, of being able to sell property and you use that money in return for something else. But I just don't think, unfortunately, this idea works at this particular location because of the threat that it actually would pose members of the community. So I do appreciate that. I did want to ask a question related to the bidding process. I'm always fascinated with this. I bring it up usually quite a bit in Public Works, and the one that we're accepting today here is the second lowest one, and the evaluation score seems exceptionally high. And so I always kind of wonder what goes into this that actually determines what the score is, and how have we been so lucky and fortunate to get the lower end of the bids. Now, obviously, not everything is always the lower end, but I find more times than not it is. And so I don't know if the fire chief could explain anything, or if maybe this is something that could be presented later on. Obviously, we're not given any information. I'm not really even looking for all the final pieces of it that makes up. Maybe some of that's supposed to be confidential, but again, we're looking at a score of 815, and it's, even its runner up is the lowest one, in comparison to one that's about $70,000 more. It's got the lowest score. So again, I just find that, I don't know, fascinating in one respect, and also kind of curious why that seems to be.
So through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Riley. So the evaluation is done on 6 levels. They're scored between 1 and 10, and then they're given, and it's multiplied by 3 sections is multiplied by 15. There's a section multiplied by 20. And the final section's multiplied by 10. So yeah, you see a high number, but at the end of the day, it could be very low if you just went, 1 to 10, so to speak. So as you also notice that, we are taking the second lowest. The second lowest, as I mentioned in my report, they had built station number 1 in 2010. They're very good at what they do. They understand the process. They work very well with us. So that's another one. They understand the challenges of building fire halls, because they have done a number of them in not only in our region, but in the southwestern part of Ontario. I mean, don't get me wrong. We could have taken the highest one, White Line, very well respected, very good architectural firm, but just way outside the price range. So at the end of the day, I think moving forward with Ramondo is the right company to move forward, because I think we will work good together, and they will work good with us to make sure we're on time and on budget.
Well, and I appreciate that explanation, because I take comfort in hearing that we've worked with them before and they've been tried, tested, and we know what we're going to get. You know, obviously there's always that question mark of, you know, what kind of contractor you're going to get. And I'm sure all these are wonderful contractors. We'd have no problem with any of them. But the fact that, you know, they have some history and they've come in the highest scoring there is, you know, and their second lowest is incredible. Last question. What is the scoring out of it? Is it out of 1,000? I'm just assuming that. Is it out of 850? Did they get a perfect score? Is it 815 or, you know, is it out of 1,000,000? I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
It's out of 1,100.
1,100. Okay, thank you. So that's actually an incredible score. So anyways, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I just got a few comments. This is a good news story, I guess. You know, we put this in the budget last year, and this is well overdue, Chief Fisher, especially for those guys and working, being down the street from my house, been in that building multiple times, seen it at its worst. And yeah, we did put a little bit of money into that. Not much back then, but we just to kind of revive it a bit. And now to move on to this, you know, I see where Council Rayner was coming to have it all in one. There's a nice property there, but I do admit that, you know, having, you know, playgrounds and fire trucks going in and out while the ball game's going on is a little distracting, and maybe someone won't be able to swing for the ball when the siren goes off, right? So it might be a little tough. You know, plus we did try to put, I remember we did try to apply for a grant for that facility. Unfortunately, it wasn't approved, and but we're still trying, and hopefully in the future we can work into updating that facility a little bit more. But this is a good story. I got a question to you, Chief Fishers. Is the station, while it's under construction, still going to be in operation to move in and out? Like how it looks to, well, I don't know, when I go there, it looks like a tight property. Maybe it's deceiving. You know, I know the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital looks like it's a tight property, but they're building a hospital there too. So can you help me out? Like, how is it going to be operational with the building going and that fire station there?
So to answer your question, Chairman Trombetta, yeah, it is deceiving, because I thought the same thing, and I actually had to go out and walk it and try and do some measuring, take some measurements. Having said that, depending on what the architect comes up at design time, at concept design drawing time, we'll see. Now, if you look, just to give you an idea on how much space there is there, if you take the existing building that's there now and put it on the east side of the property, it fits no problem.
Okay, perfect.
So, you know, if you took the square footage of what's there now and you plunked it on the east side of the property in front of the bell tower, it fits fine. So square footage wise, I'm not too concerned about. I do have some concerns and some challenges with the maintaining an active fire hall. I don't foresee a problem. It'll just be the fact that we're going to have to be on top of the contractor who gets awarded the tender to build it, to make sure that, you know, they're not dropping supplies in the middle of the parking lot at any given time. But having said that, I had a number of discussions with the 6 or 8 people that applied, and that was one of their concerns, and that went out in an addendum. But no, there's going to be a little bit of a challenge to keep them under wraps as far as making sure that things are, you know, not in the middle of the way, because it's still an active fire hall.
Well, you got a couple of tradesmen captains that you got out there. I think they'll stay on top of them to make sure that they keep a clean site out there as well. I think they'll be on top of it more than anything. So
I think to, like, even if we had to move you know, fire trucks up to the front of the parking lot for a half a day, Dave Pyatt and Luke Davis are right there to do that. So, you know, there may be some issues, you know, on a one-off daily time ways to move trucks around, but I don't foresee it. It's just going to be how we manage them. That's all.
Okay, great. Thanks for that update, Chief, and hopefully to see the shovels in the ground at some point this year, relatively soon. Thank you.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah. Seeing no other comments from this committee.
One more question.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Rayner.
Yeah, through to Mr. Mayor. That property you're referring to, the liability one you talked about, the one that was in Gainsborough, whatever it was that the one on Regional 27? That one had environmental issues though, Dave.
Yeah.
That's different than the one the one we have here, to my knowledge, does not have environmental issues. I was just saying that the value of the property would allow the building of the community center at no cost to the taxpayer. That's where I was coming from. I understand the other ramifications, and I'm willing to go either way, but it doesn't hurt to mention it now, because now's the time to talk about it. And if you said it when the construction's on, people could say, well, that's not a bad idea if it was a good idea. And they would say, why didn't you bring it up back then? But that other issue on Regional 27, that was a huge environmental issue too. So that property was very difficult to sell, even if you want it. I do not feel that this property would be in that same situation. If you put it on the market, it's in a good location. That's the only reason I looked at it. It would be a good revenue if we were to go in that direction. We have something to offset. That's all.
My understanding is that this current site is also the former Caster Public Works yard. So dollars to donuts, if I were a betting man, I'd think it'd have the exact same environmental concerns.
Underground issues?
Yeah, so again, I didn't want to make this a big deal, but just to say, even if it was a clean site and it was in our part of our inventory, we pay insurances on all of our properties, big and small, in terms of liabilities, liability insurance and those kind of things. So that, I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but it's very hard to divest those properties. And I was just pointing out that the one in Gainsborough is a classic example. And I think, if I remember correctly, the buildings almost looked identical as well. So painted green.
Well, the buildings, yeah.
And all the lights. So
yeah, the buildings.
No further, Mr. Chair, I'm done.
Thank you there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you there, Councilor Rayner. No further questions. I will call the vote there. All those in favor?
No support.
And that supports unanimously. That's good. Moving on to other business. Any members of this committee here today? Anybody from staff done anything to discuss? Anything verbally? A lot of black screens. Do you want that under this one, Mr. Mayor, or members of council, the next one?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's why I just asked members of, it's 2 and 1, so I just wanted to know what's going to come. So nobody from committee, anybody, staff, nothing to mention. I guess that's good if required. Moving on to 9.2, members of council. Any other business of an informative nature? Mr. Mayor, I saw you. Go ahead.
So just to highlight that the councillor Witteveen and myself worked in concert with the other councillors of West Niagara to get $12.6 million for a share in West Lincoln Memorial Hospital local share. That was a big win. It was at the committee, so it still has to be ratified in council, but I think kudos go to staff at Foundation, all our community partners, and the politicians who worked really diligently for many weeks in countless breakfast meetings and breakfast Zoom meetings. Probably shouldn't call them breakfast meetings. They were at breakfast time. We haven't been meeting face to face for a while, but that was a big win. We were very pleased with that amount, and we hope that it gets ratified on this week's Thursday council meeting. So I just pretty pumped about that. I think that was excellent.
That is a good news story for the surrounding communities, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely. Any other members of committee with any business of informative nature or anything? Seeing none, I really don't have much. Just everyone stay safe. It's a little bit more challenging times, especially this month. It's January. It's not much to do, but being locked in our homes, try to keep positive, moving forward, and we'll get through this sooner than we think. So I'd like to adjourn this meeting at the hour of 8:48. Thank you.
Chair of Public Works Recreation Arena Committee.
Okay.
Have our first meeting, meeting number 1 of 2021. Due to efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to protect all individuals, the council chamber will not be open to the public to attend standing committee and council meetings until further notice. The public may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda to jscime@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into public record. The meeting will be recorded and available on the township's website within 48 hours of the meeting. Madam Clerk, did we receive any communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any change in order of items on the agenda? Seeing none, we go. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflicts of interest? Seeing none, there is no appointments for this meeting. And is there anybody on the that would like to address any items on the agenda? This is Keith. I don't see any, and I don't think we usually get anybody, but seeing none or hearing that.
I'm seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to 6, consent agenda items. All items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial and can be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. And the consent agenda items are PW 01-21, the Public Works Recreation Arena Committee hereby approves the following consent agenda items. And there's 4 items and that are hereby received for information with the exemption of, and I will read them. So number 1 was West Lincoln Public Library Board meeting of November 13th, 2020. The second is West Lincoln Public Library Board minutes, December 11th, 2020. Number 3 is West Lincoln Parade Committee minutes of November 18, 2020. And number 4, the West Lincoln Parade Committee minutes of December 2nd, 2020. Is there any items that anybody would wish to pull? Seeing none, do I have a mover to move this? Councillor Ganan, and seconder, Mayor Bilsma. Anybody wish to make any comments and all those in favor?
Support.
That carries. Moving on to communications. There's no communications. We do have, then we'll move on to staff report. We have one staff report, and that is item PW 02-21, and that's from Coordinator of Recreation Services, Wendy Beatty, and Director of Public Works and Recreation, Mike DiPaolo, and that's regarding Information Report Rec-01-2021, and that is the West Lincoln Community Center and Recreation Services COVID-19 update. And the recommendation is that report REC-01-2021 regarding West Lincoln Community Care and Recreation Services COVID-19 update dated December 18th, 2021 be received for information. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Riley. And seconder, Councillor Trombetta. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question, Councillor Young.
Yes, you have the floor.
Yep, thank you. To the CAO. I noticed when I was driving by the township office last week, it kind of caught me. You've got your neon board out front, but it says the West Lincoln Community Center, but center is spelled American. Can we change it to CENTRE, or is it the format of what you've got? You can't do that.
Through you, Chair Yonker, to Councillor Rayner. I noticed that as well, and I'll put the request in.
I was a little worried because I've seen it in American. Today's Martin Luther King Day, so I thought there'd be something else up there on that one, but no, it wasn't. So it was just an error.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for noticing that. Keep your eye on the road, not on the signs, but we do need to read signs, so they are working. Any other comments or questions? I just wanted to point out that I find that this report is very good to see, and also that our staff is constantly keeping an eye on the regulations, constantly working to try to still give our community the opportunity whenever they can to have a healthy place where they can exercise and enjoy the community. And I think we do need to remember that there's that balance of always trying to keep it open, but also keeping it safe for our residents. And also that in the report there, it was mentioned that they are continuing to gauge the ice use and to make sure that if it does get to the point where we do have to close it, like how long this closure is going to last, when do we say, is it worth keeping the ice anymore? And it was good in the report that she did mention that she's keeping in touch with the groups that are constantly renting it. So just wanted to point that in the record as well. Councillor Riley, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I probably should ask this before you spoke, so I do apologize. I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO. So with the Family Day event that's currently slated to go, I think it's incredible. First of all, I thank you to staff for coming up with that. My one question has to deal with, we tried to do an escape room, if you recall, virtual escape room not too long ago, and it got canceled. Is there any possibility that the same thing's going to happen with this one? Because there was a few people who were not the happiest because their hopes had got up. So I just kind of wonder if that's a possibility in this situation again, or if this is going to happen kind of rain or shine. But I guess we're not gonna have to deal with rain or shine. It's virtual, so whether one person shows up or 100 people show up.
Actually, through you, I'm getting used to it, Chair Yonker, to Councillor Riley. I'm going to have Mike DiPaolo speak to this, if you don't mind.
Through the chair to Councillor Riley. Well, for Family Day, we have the magic show kind of booked and ready to go. We could look into the escape room for some of the other programming like March break and whatnot. So staff are looking at all different options, trying to be mindful of the cost to run these different programs as well.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to the Director of Planning, so our Director of Public Works, just to clarify my question in case I made it too wordy, I was seeking clarity and understanding, like, will the virtual magic show happen regardless of attendance? Like if one person shows up, will it still happen? And the reason I asked is because we had a virtual set up before that got canceled due to lack of registration people. I think registrants, people who I think we were hoping to get like 50 registered and we had like 10 or something. I might have made those numbers up. So I'm just clarifying, is this going to happen regardless on if we have 1 or 100 people?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Riley, apologize for that. We're going to start registration starting tomorrow once we get the information out. So we'll keep an eye on registration, but our goal is to proceed with it no matter what. I'm sure we'll have a lot of registrants. I think when we tried to run it early out of the gate, it was kind of new to everybody, but now this is kind of the norm. Everyone's getting used to these virtual events.
Okay, if I could just say one more thing, Mr. Chair. So I think it must have been over the holidays there. One of the other boards I'm a part of, the Employment Help Center, they actually did something for their staff, which was it was like a magic show. It's Mentalists, and so it was, you know, they had a bunch of people that they were able to, you know, staff wise and children and grandparents, everybody was able to take part, and it was exceptional. So I have nothing but high hopes for this. I think this would be an excellent community outreach to get the community involved. I don't know how much people are going to see each other, or if we're just going to see a screen. There's different formats, but I'm certainly very excited to see this come to West Lincoln and do our best to still kind of keep some of that, you know, Family Day tradition alive. And hopefully next year we can have Family Day back how we used to remember it. So anyways, thank you so much for your staff and everybody who's been able to organize this. I look forward to, you know, taking part in some capacity.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Councillor Bradrick, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if it's the CAO that could address this question, but the website I noticed hasn't been updated from March break 2020. And I see in the report that March break 2021 will not operate a camp program. So just wondering if there is plans on having some wording changed on that portion of the website to alert the community that we wouldn't be offering a March break. And at the same time, maybe some thoughts forward for summer camp, if we are also thinking that that may or may not be operational, maybe perhaps some wording around caution to families if they're thinking ahead that far and ahead, that they may, we may or may not operate. So I'm not sure if the CAO can answer that question, those questions. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Through you, Council Chair, through to Councillor Broderick, through Chair Yonker, I'm going to ask Mike DiPaolo to answer this as well. But just bear in mind, I appreciate the feedback, and actually I appreciate the feedback on the website, because we, again, it's new, it's our new tool. We're working hard to make sure it's updated. So when you see things, just do pop it to us, because we have more super users than what you've ever had before, so we can make adjustments. But to the director, do you have any more comments to make about the March break, or even some of the thoughts about summer camp at this point?
Okay, through the chair to Councillor Bradrick, for March break, we'll check the website, we'll update the messaging. I think now that this committee, if this committee approves this report for information, and we could get the messaging across properly for March break with what we're planning to do. I think staff are still trying to finalize plans, exactly what events we're doing on what days, but we'll get a message out there now, just so staff, parents realize that there won't be a physical March break program. As far as summer camp goes, we'll get a message out there to keep, if it's not already on the website, we'll get a message out there that will update parents as soon as we're aware of what we're able to do under the guidelines. So thanks for that feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Ganan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you again to the director. I know that the Kiwanis Club was going to help with the drop off and the kits and so on. So if that happens to get pushed back, obviously, and it goes as far back as March break, just a note to keep in mind that Kiwanis will still honor that partnership in terms of helping to get those out with a curbside pickup or whatever is going on with that. I'm sure that they will be just as happy to help whenever it comes up.
I'm sure you heard that. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? We did have a mover and a seconder on this already, right?
We did.
Yep, we did.
Okay. CEO, did you want to say something? I seen your hand go up.
Yes, thank you. We're just following up on the question that Councillor Riley raised earlier about attendance. I think the difference that between this and the escape room is that we're hosting it on our own Zoom. So it is it's more of a guarantee. to go ahead. So even if it's one, we would still proceed. And I think the last one was more of a pay by the number of attendees. So.
And like a minimum reserve. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, was that what it was last time? There's a minimum reserve that had to be met, or we had to pick up the difference?
Yeah, there were. Yeah, it was going to be very expensive to run it for the limited number of people that did sign up, and that I think that's a distinction.
Okay. No, thank you so much for following up with that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, any other comments or questions? We can move on and approve. And all those in favor?
Word.
And that passes. We move on to other business. We have 9.1 item PW03-21, Councillor Jason Trombetta regarding the Fulton Community Hall. Councillor Trombetta, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in discussion with the clerk, wasn't sure if to bring this to Public Works, but more or less I kind of thought it was going to come at planning. But because it's obviously a recreation call, it had to come to Public Works, but it might have to go back to planning. So anyways, get the chase here. So I've been approached by the Fulton Community Hall board that's sort of running it. So the original board, so let's just get some history here. The Fulton Community Hall is not one of our facilities. It's run by the Fulton community, which is the church and such. So it is an aging group. They are getting old and older, and what's happening is them looking at the Fulton Community Hall group is looking at possibly the town or the municipality taking over this hall. It's not a big property. There's a cemetery that's abutting to one side. I don't know if anybody's, it's kind of tucked away there, Fulton Community Hall, when you're driving down Highway 20. If you drive 80 kilometers an hour, it's hard to see it on your right-hand side heading into Hamilton. So it is there. And, you know, and in discussions with the mayor, you know, he was a little bit of a challenge. He actually challenged me a little bit to get more involved with the community halls. And, you know, so I put myself out there to talk to them and so on and so forth. And the hall, this is not something that's going to come this year. It's just coming up for discussion. It might come next year or maybe later, that maybe there's a possibility for us taking ownership of this hall. There is an interested group that it's still maintaining that hall for their functions and such, and they don't want to lose that. And I know how passionate the mayor is with the Silverdale Hall, and I can see how passionate people are at the Fulton Hall. And so I just brought it up for conversation. I think this needs to go back to Brian to give us some history on the property, on the owners, on the setbacks, on the cemetery, the church, all that kind of stuff. So again, I just put it on the agenda for discussion right now. Nothing to be moved, but hopefully coming down the pipe, there will be some further discussions with this hall board into us as councillors, and maybe the possibility of us taking this hall over. So I'll leave it to the floor. If anybody has maybe more information than I have, maybe members of committee, if you want to weigh in here, what your thought process is, and we'll go from there. But I just wanted to bring that on the agenda. So thanks for listening to me. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because yeah, these community halls are little gems that we have hidden, and it's good to. It's interesting how they're all set up a little different, right? But at the same time, they are there, and it's something that we want to keep. As we want to keep them if we can. So I did see Mr. Mayor had his hand up first, and then after the mayor, Councillor Ganan. So Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Councillor Trombetta, you know, I commend you for taking the bull by the horns on this. You know, we did have a discussion, and I gave you a small nudge, but mostly it's your own work. So, you know, you can take credit on this in the sense that there is a little gem there. And you're right. If we don't do anything now, we will lose them. Unfortunately, that's, you know, there's no... everything's entropy, right? Without any action, without any force, these things do slowly degrade. And then we usually come to these at the 11th hour and we find that things are too far gone. So I think you're absolutely right. The time is right to come up with perhaps dealing with it. I think it's in line with our strategic plan in terms of, you know, a healthy community. Albeit there's challenges, and I think we recognize that those challenges, and I think that's where we need guidance from the staff with respect to, you know, I know when the hall boards have a certain autonomy, if there's good people in those boards, the hall boards run very, very well. And of course, you know, I am proud, and I think Councillor Jonker is, about the little hall in our community. You know, there's a certain initiative there that keeps it going. I know, and not to detract, I just know them a little bit less. I'm a little bit less familiar with the things that are happening in Abingdon and Wellandport. But nevertheless, I think that this one, Fulton, but also Abingdon and Wellandport, there's a lot of untapped potential in terms of community engagement, in terms of, you know, Wellandport has beautiful grounds, as does Abingdon. Fulton, I'm a little bit less, I don't think I've ever been, I think I turned around in the parking lot one time to go back home. Forgot something, but that's as close as I got. So I have no idea what the asset is there. But all that to say, I think that they are hubs, and perhaps in these COVID days, they might be the first things that allow people to assemble, you know, in some kind of community event, and we start meeting our neighbors again. And again, you have to find that driving individual that you know. I mean, I'll go on record and say Chris Frere is a driving force in the Silverdale community, and she deserves to be commended for her diligence. You need to find those type of people who through thick and thin and push through and are inspired and are inspiring. So I appreciate you for bringing this forward, and I'd support a report coming back. You know, like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of a motion, but maybe we can finesse something based on the discussion that happens here. So thank you, Mr. Chair. No further from me.
Thank you. Gannon, Councillor Gannon, go ahead, you have the floor.
As soon as I unmute. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to point out that we have been attending the Silverdale dinners for as long as they've been having them. John and I have supported all of them. So I want members of the committee to know that hall, that Fulton Hall, is just as important to the people in that area. And we also have been supporting those dinners. So they run traditionally breakfast a couple of times or 3 times a year. And they also have done through the summers pulled pork barbecues and things. So those people are working extremely hard in the same way that the Silverdale people are to keep their small halls going. The difference is, you know, that there have been some big changes. And I can see why they would entertain some discussion with Councillor Trombetta about the future of that hall, because, for example, Paul McDougall and his parents, you know, Smith and Arlene, who have both now passed away, as has Paul, were very instrumental in doing things there. And Al and Melva Panic, and we've lost Melva in the last little while as well. And so we still have Fred and Carol Loudon and some, you know, some people who still live out that way. And we have some of their children that have stayed in the areas that are hoping also to keep that hall going just as well as their parents did in the past. So I think it's well worthy of discussion, because it is going to be a big question mark in the future as to whether they're able to continue to do that or whether they'll need some other umbrella format. So I'm just happy to have an opportunity to say a little bit about just how valuable it is to have that community center. That is their community center, the people who live along the whole corridor along Highway 20, and then the farms that go back. Still a huge part of West Lincoln, of course. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trombetta, you had your hand up again. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and thank you, Council and Mr. Mayor, for weighing in on this. You know, and just to allude to what the Mayor said, you know, these community halls do give somebody stuff to do, especially during this COVID time. They're probably meeting just like we are on Zoom, and they're having their discussions for their annual years and so on and so forth, which gives people things to motivate themselves pushing forward, especially during the pandemic. You know, I've been to the Fulton Community Hall. I've had the breakfast that they had there annually. It's actually a busy little place. But again, it's tough to see because it's right off to the side there, and it's really tucked away back there. But You know, I'd like to possibly maybe put on the floor a motion for the Fulton Community Hall to come back for an information, possibly maybe get Brian for an information report on this property, on what the boundaries are, what's a part of the church, so on and so forth. So I'd be looking for maybe an information report to come back to council, probably way after budget, let's say sometime in May, if that's okay for the will of council. You know, and hopefully an information report can come back on the Fulton Community Hall sometime let's put it for the May planning meeting. And if that's okay, if the will of council, I've been looking for a seconder for that.
I'll second it.
Okay, Riley seconds that. And I guess we can call a vote. All those in favor?
Support.
And that passes. So yeah, we'll be looking for a report from council, and that's good. It's great to keep on.
And I just make note of it for to come back in the May planning meeting.
Yeah, that was in.
Yeah, that's what I voted on too.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, bringing that up. We'll move to 9.2. And members of council, any other business items of an informative nature? I'm kind of thinking we just had that a couple half hour ago, if that. So is there anybody else that needs to bring anything forward? Good, seeing none. I don't think there's any new business either. And there's no confidential matters. I adjourn this meeting. I'm thinking that at 9:20.